Hello, YouTube. Hello to everyone in the chat and everyone watching on the VOD. This is, of course, your esteemed host, Mr. Shintigercurl, and with that dude in the straw hat, bringing you yet another edition of Shintigercurl Streamin. How's everybody doing? I see you, Devil, in the chat. You're always closing up shop, but it's glad that you're always checking in. Of course, if you didn't check the title or the announcement on the community tab, we will be continuing our deep dive into the world of Warmachine and hordes. But before we do that, you know what time it is. You know what you got to do. It's time to get out your guns, lock and load, because it's time to shoot the shit. Let's see who keeps messaging me. Oh, wait a minute, that's just Discord. Anyway, so, a lot to talk about. First and foremost, AEW All In 2024 just happened live from Wembley Stadium on Sunday. And I gotta say, it was a great show. Thankfully, thankfully, no fighting or anything kind of backstage drama that happened. Yeah, I know your work schedule is rough, Devil, so I'm just here to help you get through that work schedule as best you can. But yeah, All In 2024, Wembley, great time. Not a perfect show than what is, but it was a great show, very entertaining, had a lot of great stuff going on. I'm not gonna do a run by one of all the matches, but I'll just do the ones that kind of stood out to me as far as I can remember. Show opened with the London ladder match for the trios titles between the House of Black, the Bang Bang Gang, the Patriarchy, the reigning champs, and the new team that earned their way into this match. The unlikely team of Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, and the Bastard Pack. Well, I think they got the Bastard into this is because he wasn't able to go to Wembley last year due to an injury, but now he could, and what an ovation he got. This is your typical ladder car crash match. All the nice stuff. Everybody got their shit in. Great stuff was had all around. In came when Killswitch turned on Christian Cage, keeping him from climbing the ladder, allowing the Bastard Pack to get the title belts and now claim himself, Yuta, and Swiss as the new AEW Trios champions. Fun fact, this is actually the first bit of AEW gold that both Yuta and Swiss have gotten since they joined the company. Now, of course, you might be probably thinking about other titles, but just keep in mind, Swiss was a former ROH World Champion, and Utes is a former Pure Champion, all under the ROH banner. This is their first proper titles in AEW proper. So, it was a good moment. Great stuff. Next up, Timeless Toni Storm defended her women's world title against former protege, now turned bitter enemy, the Glamour Mariah May, having earned her spot in this by winning the Women's Owen Hart Cup. This was a stiff, brutal, and emotional match to watch. Just a lot of good storytelling, a lot of stiff strikes, some bleeding from Mariah May, nice little cameo from Mariah May's mother, who got slapped the crap out of by her own daughter and was comforted by Timeless Toni Storm. In comes when Toni goes for the shoe, but just can't do it because she still loves Mariah somewhere deep in her heart, and that ended up costing her as Mariah turned the tables on her and beat her with her own finisher, the Storm Zero, to become the new Women's World Champion. Ooh, what a come up for Mariah May, and she showed why she deserved to be World Champion. She has come up a big time, and give it up for Timeless Toni Storm. It was a gimmick that a lot of people were iffy on, but now it is a glorious gimmick, and we all love it. The For the World title was on the line as the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho, hi guys, took on Hook in a FTW Rules match. Big Bill still very much over with the crowd in Great Britain. It was a fun little match, kind of goofy at points. Chris Jericho brought out his unusual weaponry for this type of match, which is cricket balls, and to quote a great philosopher, cricket? Nobody understands cricket. You got to understand what a crumpet is to understand cricket. Yeah, Ending comes. Big Bill gets taken out by being put through a table with barbed wire on it. Hook puts Jericho in the red room, but the bounty hunter Brownie Keith decided to interfere, and that's when Taz decided to join in, and he locks in the Kata Hajime on Brian Keith. Jericho taps, and Hook is now a 4-time FTW World Champion, and him and his father have a nice little hug, nice little moment. Match was goofy, but that moment made up for it. Let's see, what else? I'm not going doing these in order because I'm going off memory. For the American title, MJF defends against Will Ospreay. And the dude actually gets a long extended intro by none other than the voice actor for my man, Ezio Auditore de Florencia, the protagonist of the Ezio trilogy of the Assassin's Creed games. And it's always good to hear that smooth Italian voice of Ezio. That's my man. My man. Aside from the streamer crap that was in the ring, this match was fantastic. Great storytelling, great athleticism from both guys. MJF showing why he's not just a mouth, but he's legitimately one of the best wrestlers in the world. And thank you, Devil, for getting that reference. If you get it in the chat or in the VOD, let me know down below. Great little match. It was so great. The end comes when MJF decides to go for the cheat. Somebody stole his ring, so he has to go for some plaster knucks, but then a masked hooded figure arrives and steals it away. The hooded figure reveals himself to be none other than D-Gar himself, Daniel Garcia. There have been rumors swirling about for weeks that Garcia was considering leaving AEW. But I guess since they're doing this, I guess they're going to be working a program together soon, which is good because I love Daniel Garcia and his dance. Anyway, after having enough of his shit, Will Ospreay busts out the Tiger Driver 91, hits it, 1, 2, 3, regains, the American title, but then Christopher Daniels comes out and gives him the proper international title. Good stuff, my man, good stuff. Let's see, in the Casino Gauntlet Battle Royale, they made some tweaks to this Casino Battle. I mean, like I mentioned before, the Casino Battle Royal is perhaps my favorite multi-man archetype that AEW's ever done. It's very much similar. It takes hints from both the Royal Rumble from, of course, the WWE, and Aztec Warfare from Lucha Underground. One fall to a finish. Not all the participants have to be in the match for the match to end, so it could end almost any time. OC, of course, won his #1 spot, which is, in this case, in this type of match, is the best spot to be in because you're in there earlier, meaning that you have more chances to end the match. He's in there with Kazuchika Okada. They share a hug because they used to be stablemates in Chaos, but then Okada turns on him. The #3 one blew the roof off the whole fucking place, blew my mind too, as #3 was none other than candidate for Player Hater of the Year and commentator voice of Collision, ROH legend Nigel McGuinness makes his in-ring return after 13 years away, having had to go into retirement due to injury and health issues. The man, the myth, the Nigel himself returned, and he looks like he hasn't lost a step. A little bit rusty, but he still looks fucking great. Had a lot of interests. We had, of course, the conglomeration in there. We had some representation from the Undisputed Kingdom. And here comes another blow your mind moment. As the leader of TMDK, the Mighty Don't Kneel, former member of Suzuki-gun, one half of the Dangerous Techers, and the current G1 Climax 2024 winner, my boy, the Submission Wizard, Zack Sabre Jr. Of course, he made a name for himself, restarted his rivalry with Okada, which they had for many, many years. And I can't believe my eyes when I saw two of my all-time favorite British wrestlers sharing the same ring again, Nigel and Zack. That was some good stuff. And the final really big surprise was the AEW debut of none other than Ricochet. And He made a statement for himself. So yeah, I'm just glad they didn't shoehorn him into a feud or anything. This is just just a way to say, hey, he's here. Gonna do some flippy shit. We're gonna have some fun. Ah, Hangman Adam Page showed up, continuing to show how psychotically hateful he is of Swerve, that he almost beat up Karen Jarrett. Did I mention that Double J is in this match too? Yeah, Double J, very over with the crowd. Surprisingly so. The final two combatant entrants were Christian Cage, as he limps his way to the ring, still feeling the effects of that triangle ladder from that London ladder match. Hopefully trying to get who he promised that he would have all the titles, so he's going after the world title. And the last one would be none other than Luchasaurus. Came out to the whole Jurassic Express theme. Came out to his original name of Luchasaurus. It looked like they were going to tease him breaking up, but nope. 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 He puts an end to that and gives Christian Cage the win. And he has now a Money in the Bank-esque contract, guaranteed title shot anytime he chooses. Yeah, played us, Christian Cage. Let's see. Triple threat match for the AEW tag team titles. The Young Bucks, Nicholas and Matthew, sporting some very nice Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club uniforms. The FTR with some very nice inspired Bret Hart attire, and the Acclaimed. Very nice hot tag team match between arguably three of the best tag teams in AEW history, all former tag team champions. Some great little spots in there. I can't do it justice, but in the end, the Bucks retain as you are wont to do. But afterwards, we saw the arrival of none other than the grizzled young veterans, making their presence known by beating the shit out of FTR and then setting their sights on the Bucks, telling them to grit those teeth. For the TBS Women's Championship, Mercedes Moné, in an excellent entrance, faces Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. This wasn't as good as the Toni Storm Mariah May match. It had a lot of miscommunications. It was clear the two of them weren't exactly on the same page. It was not a botch fest, but it just felt like the timing was a little bit off. There were some great moments, some great counters from everyone, especially that Eddie moment from Britt Baker, and to get the brick house out of there. But in the end, Mercedes Moné, CEO, retains. Oh, and since we're still on the women, I have to tell you about another return that happened. It was in the pre-show, 0 hour, the return of none other than Jamie Hayter. Just, why is Jamie Hayter? How is Jamie Hayter? How are you possible, Jamie Hayter? You are unlikely, nay, impossible. And she set her sights not on any of the women's titles, but on the Outcast for costing her world title when she had to go away due to her shoulder injury. The women's division is about to heat up. I think this is the semi-main. Jack Perry, Darby Allin, TNT title coffin match. Darby Allin came out there with thumbtacks, I think, taped or glued to his face and his head. Very Pinhead-esque. Of course, Jack Perry came out. Nice, these two were just beating the shit out of each other. And then, one of my favorite moments of the night. Nice little callback to last year, where Jack Perry inadvertently changed the landscape of two wrestling companies forever, as he brought out a bag, and he brought out real glass. And the crowd went apeshit for it. I mean, that was a massive pop that he got as soon as they saw it. And they were chanting, "Oh, cry me a river." And they were chanting, "Real glass, real glass." And even some occasional chants of "fuck CM Punk." This was a very short match. It could have gone for a couple of more minutes, but oh well. So, showing just how sadistic he is, Jack Perry duct tapes Darby's arms together. Darby fights back, but gets power bombed on the rampway. Then Jack takes off Darby's belt, ties his legs together, and then throws him off the stage through some tables. Then he takes Darby, puts him in a body bag, drags him to the coffin, puts him in there. Darby raises up like he's the fucking Undertaker, but eats a knee from Jack, and lid gets closed. Jack Perry defeats Darby Allin in his signature match for the first time. His first loss since he introduced this gimmick. His first loss since he introduced the match. So the Bucks come out there and they have a can of gasoline. Oh, I'm sorry, we're in England. I forgot about it. It's called petrol. A canister of petrol. And he plans to, well, give him a taste of what he did to him all those months ago at the Stadium Stampede match. I mean, at the Anarchy in the Arena match, I'm sorry. And he covers both Darby and the casket in petrol. Then the lights go out. And then Seek and Destroy comes up, and it's Sting! Heads out. And he comes out there to beat ass. He may be retired from in-ring action, but it doesn't mean he can't beat some ass, and he saves his best friend. Now for the main event of the evening. The final countdown. Title versus career. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, versus Swerve Strickland, the champion. Very nice, epic little video package of Danielson's quarter-century career. And as he goes to the ring, at ringside is his family, his wife Bree, and their two kids, Birdie and Buddy. A lot of B's in that thing. Brian, Bree, Birdie, Buddy. So anyway, Swerve comes out. Prince Nana gives him the Jimmy Rave cloak. Rest in peace, Jimmy Rave. And we had a very excellent, awesome main event. Awesome main event. Lots of stories. A lot with Bryan struggling, trying to overcome Swerve because Swerve has been a dominant champion. At one point, he even gives him a Death Valley driver onto the ring bell, busting him open, and then proceeds to beat a bloody Bryan in front of his family, and seeing Birdie just shy away from watching her dad just getting beat to stem to stern. But Bryan just keeps on fighting. At one point, Swerve no-sells the Cena Killer. That's the Psycho Knee, but I call it the Cena Killer. He utterly no-sells it and just wipes the dust off his shoulder like, that's the best you got? Look like Swerve is on the verge of retaining and retiring one of the greatest wrestlers of all time when an angry Hangman Page comes out there for a distraction. He doesn't get physically involved. He just is, well, he is homicidally hateful of Swerve at this point. This would have ended the match, but nope. Bryan, they keep on fighting. It is a back and forth. Bryan showing why he is called the American goddamn Dragon. At one point, he is getting kicked in the chest by Swerve, but he looks over at his family, and he's not even looking at Swerve as he's getting kicked in his chest. He's just talking to his family. He's talking to his daughter. He's like, I love you. I'm doing this for you. You don't know how much I love you. He's no-selling Swerve's kicks, and he just ratchets it up to 13 and just starts beating the shit out of Swerve. Then he locks him into the label lock. Swerve goes for the counter, but Bryan gets his fingers, snaps him, then puts him in the rings of Saturn. Then Swerve taps. Bryan Danielson is finally AEW World Champion. And it's a celebration. It's one of the most feel-good moments I have ever had the pleasure of watching. Ooh, damn. Yeah, his family come out to celebrate him. The members of the BCC come out to celebrate him. Pac is out there because, well, he's Pac and stuff. And yeah, we found out in the scrum by Fightful Select reports that Danielson was always going to win the title. They actually wanted him to win the title, I think, in April, but he said he didn't want to win the title. And TK actually had to talk him into becoming world champion. He's like, I don't want to be world champion. Like, listen to me, goddammit. You listen to me, you son of a bitch. You're the best wrestler in the world, and you deserve the best. So you're gonna go to Wembley. You're gonna beat Swerve. You're gonna take that world title, and you're gonna be the best damn world champion if you like it or not. How you like those apples, mister? Brian's like, okay, fine. If you want me to, I'll be world champion. Christ. Slave driver, Tony Khan. Goddamn right I am. It's funny that the two men who are teasing the two men in the entire company who are the nicest have to be talked into winning titles because they're just that giving. Him and Sting. Just wow. Just wow. Great show. But great show. So we'll find out the fallout on tomorrow night on Dynamite. But this Sunday, we also got Bash in Berlin. I don't know the full card for WWE. I do know, the ones I do know, Gunther will defend the World Heavyweight title against Randy Orton. What else? Against Randy Orton. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre will face off in a Yapapai Indian strap match. And that's about all I know. But I'll have to look it up next time when we're streaming again. Still on wrestling. Still some more wrestling news. A quick Resquio Impache. Sydney Uday, Eddie, or I don't know how to pronounce his last name. That's actually the first time I've ever known his last name. Fans would know him as either Psycho Sid, Sid Justice, or Sid Vicious. He passed away tragically this week at the age of 63 due to complications involving his fight against cancer. This one hurt. I remember seeing vignettes of Sid when he first came to WWE, and he legitimately scared me. He just had this presence about him. He wasn't just big. He had this presence, like he had this sense of danger about him. Like he was a nut job. Like he could run you over in the street and he wouldn't give two shits. He just had that presence about him. And WWE knew it. They had him main event with freaking Hulk Hogan at a WrestleMania. Had him beat Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series for the world title, and then face off against The Undertaker to defend the world title. He's actually part of the streak. But yeah, there's nothing more that needs to be said. The master of the powerbomb, ruler of the world, now being the ruler of heaven. See it on that road, Sid. All right, two bits of more wrestling news we got to talk about before we move on to another bit of news. News, I said. That being two interviews of two people I don't really like. First interview comes from MGK, Machine Gun Kelly, in an interview he did on Logan Paul's podcast. Boo! Boo! MGK said that he cussed out Randy Orton and told him fuck you and intimidated him. Let me get this straight. You're saying MGK, a skinny ass white boy covered in tattoos, weighing about between anywhere from 5 to 100 kilograms, soaking wet, who looks like he couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag, intimidated Randy Keith Orton? If you believe that, then you believe that Hulk Hogan was going to be a bass player for Metallica. Yeah, I got a bridge to sell you. Nobody believes that shit. Even Logan Paul, as much as I hate that son of a bitch, even he was like, fuck out of here. You could see on his face, it's like, yeah, right, you did that. I'm not sure if MGK is trying to get an angle for himself or trying to work a match, but yeah, no one is buying that you intimidate anybody. Least of all Randy Orton. Hell, Zach Gowen was more intimidating than you, MGK. And Zach Gowen had one leg. Hell, James Ellsworth, career jobber that he is more intimidating than MGK. So yeah, MGK, the only relevance that anyone knows you by is the fact that you got completely washed by Eminem. That's all we know you by. As for other interviewees, Bill Goldberg was interviewed by everyone's favorite wrestling interviewer, Chris Van Vliet. I didn't see the rest of it because there's no point in watching it, because in one particular segment, which is on Chris Van Vliet's channel, Bill Goldberg said that that the reason why it was so hard for him to pick up the Fiend during their match in Saudi was because he was suffering from a torn rotator cuff that he didn't get fixed for over 6 years. His reasoning was that he couldn't afford to take time off because Vince might need him. Let me get this straight, Bill. You had a severe injury that basically meant that you were wrestling with one arm. You went into a match with another person to try to do your signature move that required significant arm strength on your part to lift up someone like Bray Wyatt, who himself is not a light man. And you didn't tell anybody about this because you were scared that Vince was gonna need you. It's bad enough you squashed him, but you see, this is the reason why Bret Hart fucking hates you. And he's right to do so if you're doing shit like this, Bill. Like, yeah, you don't care about anybody but yourself, Bill. Putting Bray Wyatt's life at risk. Ruining his main event run. All because of some ego-driven need to feel like a superhero. So I say this with all due respect, Bill Goldberg, fuck you. That's all for wrestling for now, but last bit of news. We had a Nintendo Direct today that I missed completely because I was sleeping. A lot of big news dropped. Something we're excited for TWK and my friend Dante Nickings, as it reported that soon, Yakuza Kiwami, the remake of the original Yakuza game, will be on Switch soon. This will be the first time any part of the Yakuza series will be on a Nintendo console, and I'm all happy for it. I'm a big fan of the Yakuza series. Never had a chance to play it because I didn't have the system and the timing wasn't right. But I'm glad that hopefully we'll get an entirely new generation of fans into this series and understanding why the Dragon of Dojima, Kazuma Kiryu, is a badass. We also got the soon-to-be release of the first two Suikoden games. Very good games, Suikoden. Very nice RPG. Also, in another part of the Castlevania collection, they released the DS games, which will include Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, not my favorite of the DS games because reasons, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia. I played Order of Ecclesia. I beat it. Fun game, great game. Shinoa, she is bae. Oh, what else? Perhaps also, I forgot to mention the Shovel Knight DX collection, the definitive edition of one of my all-time favorite platformers from Yacht Club Games, Shovel Knight. Fantastic game. If you haven't played it, I got it for the Switch and I got it for my Steam. Played it, beat the whole treasure trove. One of my favorite gaming series ever. I love Shovel Knight, and this DX collection sounds boss. We also got a release date for the Marvel fighting game collection, which will be on March 12th. In a scant few weeks. But the big one, the one that got the entire fighting game community up and all hype, is the Capcom Fighting Game Collection 2. Which will include games that have never been released outside of their initial releases. Those games include Capcom vs. SNK 1, Capcom vs. SNK 2, Star Gladiator, Project Justice, Power Stones 1 and 2, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, which is considered by many to be one of the better versions of Street Fighter Alpha 3, and of course, Capcom Fighting Evolution. Now I'm gonna borrow a joke from Solid JJ, and gonna go something like this. Wow, some of the best fighting games that ever came out that have never been re-released, and Capcom Fighting Evolution. Seriously though, Capcom Fighting Evolution sucks. It is hot garbage. I don't even know why Capcom put this in there. It's like putting Snake's Revenge in the MGS collection. It's fun for historical purposes, but overall, no one's gonna be playing it. I'm not. My best friend and me played it a couple of times for one day, and then he just never touched it again. We played all the other games in this collection when they were released on Dreamcast and PS2 and GameCube and all this other shit. We didn't touch Fighting Evolution ever again. The game is absolute crap. Just crap. I'm excited for the other games, especially CVS2, which the last major release for it was for the GameCube, the version I own, which was called Capcom vs. SNK 2 EO, Easy Operation, which meant that you could assign special moves and super moves to the C stick, and if you wanted to perform, just tap it in the direction. It is the only game that I have consistently used the Raging Demon more than one time, and not by accident. And it does, and according to what from the official website, you will be able to use EO edition of the game. So it's just a one button super move. So you can't do supers, especially in CVS2. One button, that's all you need. One button Hadouken, one button Shoryuken, one button Shin Shoryuken, one button whatever. It's all good. I can't wait for this. It's going to be in 2025. Yeah, thank you. I love that. I love those games. So many memories. All right. I think that's enough shooting for the now. I think it's time to get where we need to go. So, Law, the analyst. Thank you, Law. All right. We are re-entering the world of Warmachine and Hordes where we stopped off last week. Yep, this time we're going to try to get through the rest of the factions as efficiently as possible. And of course, these are all the Mark II and Mark III books. There is Mark IV, but I haven't been able to get my hands on the stuff like that. So this is all just pre-Oblivion. I'll get to that if we have time. All right. The faction you're seeing on screen is the third, well, officially third of the Iron Kingdoms, the Protectorate of Menoth. And let's go to the faction map. All right. The Protectorate itself is, for a brief moment in time, Menites were kind of not really the dominant. Menoth was not the faith of Menoth was not the dominant religion of not just Signar. As you can see here on the screen, this white part, that's the Protectorate, and right next door, literally across the river, is Signar. This is an area where the most of the Menites went when they felt that they just weren't welcome in Signar. This became a small little outsider state, a protectorate, as you will. And this area is technically called an area called Seul. So whenever Menites come up, they make the distinction of regular Menites and Seul Menites. Seul means they come from the Protectorate. Now, technically the Protectorate didn't have an army because it was technically a part of Signar, but that is until about 100 years ago, when the Protectorate waged war against Signar, hoping to take down the monarchy and make the faith of Menoth the dominant faith again. Remember, the Church of Morrow is the dominant faith of Signar. The battle was brutal, and they technically won by killing the king, but they also lost their hierarch, which is like their pope, and they were forced back to Seul. This caused an armistice between them where they could be their sort of own country, they just couldn't raise an army. And then 100 years later, they raised an army. And they have this stuff called the Breath of Menoth. It's basically the Iron Kingdom's equivalent, not the Iron Kingdom equivalent of Greek fire. It's this substance that just burns at a very high temperature, and it will burn and just burn. And they use this as their primary weapon. The primary thing is not just synergy with all the other models, but just with fire and burning and holy might and all this other shit. And thus they began the Great Crusade. Not that Great Crusade. I'm not talking about you, imps. Great Crusade is basically the Protectorate going around trying to unite all the kingdoms, trying to bring the laws of Menoth back to the Iron Kingdoms, because not all the Iron Kingdoms follow the same religion. And their whole thing is, hey, believe what I believe, I will believe what I believe, or I'll fucking burn you. That's what they do. Yeah, I'm not a particular fan of them. They're not evil, they're just zealots. And they got some really interesting warcasters, so let's go look at them right quick. Amin Abbas Raza He is a man. He is a very beefy dude, sort of one of the newer characters. Tristan Durant, very focused person. This is Durest. Oh, this is Tristan Durant. I'm sorry, it's a different person. Anson Durst, the Rock of the Faith. Looks like a fucking, look at it. See, look at all that fire. Look at all that fire. Feora, Priestess of the Flame. Feora is a very ambitious woman who wants to make herself hierarch one day. Hierarch being the highest position in the entirety of the faith. It's basically the akin to a priest king or a pope, as it were. And of course, she has different versions. Feora, Protector of the Flame. Her third version, Feora, Conjurer of the Flame. Now I want to skip over this one. I'm going to the High Reclaimer. Now the Reclaimer is a type of class of character within the Protectorate, and the High Reclaimer is like one of the best. And they just don't, his identity isn't even known. They just call him the High Reclaimer. Now, what's important for the High Reclaimer is this, that he becomes the Testament of Menoth. Now, you see, at one point, the High Reclaimer actually got killed in combat, and he was sent to Urkane, and went to the City of Man, and he found this book, supposedly written by Menoth himself. And he took this book and he literally pushed open the doors of the afterlife and returned back to Cain. Like, he literally came back from the depths of the afterlife through sheer devotion to his God and ferocious forces of will. And he is a terror on the battlefield. High Exemplar Krios. Very interesting person right there. I like Krios. He becomes a Grand Exemplar Krios, is of our version, and Intercessor Krios in his cavalry form. We have Malchus, the Burning Truth. Look at that book. Look at that book. We have the High Executioner, Servath Resnick. Here is his evolved form. Resnick, the Wrath of Ages. Yeah, he's a chariot. This looks like the cover of a metal album. Look at it. That artwork is just amazing. Grand Secretator, Severius. A very powerful, influential leader who would eventually become Hierarch Severius, the leader of the Protectorate. Thyra, the Flame of Sorrow. And Vice Secretator Vindictus. But now I want to talk about perhaps the most important person in the entirety of the Protectorate. Someone with whom the entire crusade was centered around. And that being this one, if I can find her. My friend, say hello to the Harbinger of Menoth. The Harbinger is a mysterious girl, late teens, early 20s. He was discovered in some area about the outskirts outside of Emir, which is the capital of Seul. And there were two things people noted about her. One, that she always wore a blindfold, and two, she always floated several feet above the ground. And her name and identity are unknown. She just identified herself as the Harbinger of Menoth. She was taken before the grand conclave of all of the leadership of the Protectorate. And they grilled her for hours. And it should be noted, according to the myth, to the lore, her shadow didn't move the entire time that she was being grilled. And it just showed that she is literally been touched by her god. She speaks with Menoth's voice. She is clairvoyant. She has the power to raise the dead. And she is literally the most, in terms of just abilities, the Harbinger is the most powerful warcaster in the whole fucking game. I am not kidding. Like, she is just absurdly powerful. And she's, like I said, she has died and come back to life a few times before. Just to go to show you just how powerful she is. All right, we can go to the Warjacks now. All right. First, we have the Castigator. I don't keep in mind I don't know much about the Protector. I didn't play them. I didn't really care too much. We have the Crusader, nice little heavy warjack. We have the Dervish, light warjack. The Devout, class warjack. The Guardian, heavy warjack. The Indictor. The Purifier. The Reckoner. The Redeemer. The Repenter. See, can you see a theme we're going with here? The Revenger, the Sanctifier, the Templar, the Vanquisher, the Vigilant, the Avatar of Menoth, which is character warjack, very powerful. Look at that shit. We got the Blessing of Vengeance, the personal warjack of Hierarch Severius. I love the blast. I love the spear this thing has. The Blood of Martyrs, which is Thyra's personal warjack. The Eye of Truth. Let's see. Malicus's personal warjack. The Flame of Salvation, Krios's personal warjack. The Hand of Judgment. Fiora's warjack with a big fuck off flamethrower. The Scourge of Heresy. Yeah, Heresy. The Judicator, which is their first Colossal, lots of fire. And the Revelator, their second Colossal. Big meaty hands. Now, as for the soldiers just rely on faith and fire. Faith and fire. What more do you need with a group like this? We have the Choir of Menoth. I've run into the Choir of Menoth. These guys are annoying. The Daughters of the Flame, Feora's group. We have the Deliverer Skyhammers, who use rockets. The Deliverer Sunburst crew. The Flamebringers, their signature cavalry unit. The Flame Guard Cleansers. The Flame Guard's attachment officer. The Holy Zealots. The Monolith Bearers. The Temple Flame Guard, their attachment officer and standard, the Attendant Priests, the Idrian Skirmishers. The Idrians are also natives to Sual, who were converted over to the Mennite faith. Their attachments, the Chieftain and Guide, Weiskov, Jurif, Rolvin, and Honor Guard, signature unit. Alignment of the Order of the Fist. These guys are kung fu monks. They don't say they don't say they're kung fu, but look at them. They're kung fu monks. Deliverer Arms Master, nice little solo. The Hierophant, another solo. The Paladin of the Order of the Wall. The Reclaimer Gatekeeper. Vassal Mechanic, because all of them need mechanics. The Vassal of Menoth. This is interesting. This is the rack. Basically, these are these heretics that they've strung up on racks, and they inflict damage to them to basically boost up their attack points. They're just like, we're gonna use your faith, and you're gonna repent. And these guys also can explode if they have too much damage on them. And I've seen some really greasy strategies with this thing. This is just terrifying. The Covenant of Menoth, guy with a giant book. The High Paladin Dartran Vilmon. Initiate Tristan Durant before he became a warcaster. And Nicaea, the Tear of Vengeance. I like her. Pyrrhus, Flame Guard hero. And the Vessel of Judgment, their battle engine, which is, yeah, the Pope Mobile, weaponized. Yeah, that was the Protectorate. Yeah, like they say. Yeah, the names are pretty awesome. I'm just not a fan of the factions. The names are pretty awesome, but moving on. We have the faction that could be considered the closest to pure evil as you can get. That would be the Nightmare Empire of Crix. So let's look at the map right quick. They are the only part of the Iron Kingdoms that is not a part of mainland immoren. They are actually on a set of islands, a set of archipelago islands just off the coast of the Broken Coast on the Meridius, called the Broken Isles. or the Scarred Isles, as they're called. As I mentioned before, probably didn't remember if I probably didn't mention last time. The Cricks were founded by Torek the Dragonfather. He was nearly killed in a battle with several of his spawn, and he found refuge in the Scarred Islands. There, he turned the pirate kings, the pirate lords, into his lich army, and he would transform the entirety of the Scarred Islands into an empire. And they've been around since before even the days of the Orgoth invasion. And they didn't have anything to do with the Orgoth. They did steal a bunch of the war witches that the Orgoth used and repurpose them for their own purposes. So, like the Orgoth, the Cricks are masters of death and souls. Like, they can kill you, and then they can take your soul and use it for their own purposes. And they fuel their engines off things called necrotite, which is a type of mineral that is produced on fields of particularly bloody battles. So the more battles that there are, the more death being sowed, the stronger they could potentially get. And you unless you have a death wish or something, no one goes to the Scarred Islands unless you like death or unless you got a death wish. Yep, and technically, Torek is the leader of the Empire, of the Nightmare Empire, but he doesn't handle the day-to-day operations. He's just doing his own thing. Instead, it is ruled over by his Iron Liches, who are basically cybernetic unholy zombies who manipulate life and death. And just wait till we get to Warcasters. These guys are masters of necromancy. First, we got Bane Witch Agathina. She's rather new. Captain Ikaios. He's a former pirate captain turned undead warlock in service of the Dragonfather. Keep in mind, a lot of the models and characters in here are actually pirates who have sworn fealty to the Nightmare Empire. This is probably my favorite of all the warcasters of Cricks is Lich Lord Asphyxious. I like this guy because in all the associated media, he speaks in this old-timey, old English sort of way, these and thous and stuff like that. He is ambitious. He is cunning. He is tactical. Everything he does is for a purpose. Like, unlike the other Lich Lords, he actually became a Lich Lord by choice. He wanted to become a Lich Lord and serve him because he wanted greater power. And everything, and the other Lich Lords don't particularly like him because he's always scheming, always planning. He does things that go against the plans of the other Lich Lords. He's not a rebellious sort of guy. He just does his own thing. Like, I'm gonna do this thing. I don't even care if you guys like it or not. And I like that about him. And he's just ambitious. That's another reason why I like him. And I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. And this is his evolved form, Lich Lord Asphyxious. Even better. His third form, Asphyxious, the Hellbringer, and his Visceraphon. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. And, of course, he's got this thing to help him with, too. And this is the other reason why I like him, is because of this character, the War Witch Denegra. Now, this is how deep the lore goes for Warmachine, that it turns out that Denegra is actually the twin sister of the Signarin Warcaster Victoria Haley. If you don't remember who she is, let me bring her up again. Yeah, these two are twins. Yeah, those two are twins. She was kidnapped in the same raid that killed Haley's entire family, and she was raised as a war witch for the Cricks. And what's interesting is she was personally raised and trained by Asphyxious. And interesting enough, their relationship is very loving, if you can understand that. And I don't mean in a sort of sexual way. I think he sees Denegra more as a daughter than anything else. And she looks up to him like a father figure. And I think there was a point during the Thornwood invasion where it looked like Denegra was going to die. And she thought, is this part of his plan for me to die? And she confronted him about it. And he basically said, look, I have some great plans, but none of that includes me sacrificing you. You are most precious to me, Denegra, and I would not risk your life so easily. You are not a pawn to me. You mean more to me than that. And it just goes to show that the Lich Lords are capable of other emotions if he's willing to have these kind of emotions for Denegra. And there was another story where Denegra actually confronted Haley about them being sisters, and in turn kind of betraying her and nearly killing her for reasons. And if you want some more deep lore, Denegra also has a connection to our boy, Mr. Alistair Kane. You see, in the story, Hellslinger, Kane was actually being wanted by the CRS for being a traitor, and he wanted to just get these people off of him. So he goes to this mystic, and she says, I have a way to get these people off of you and get rid of all your enemies. And he inadvertently agrees. The next day, while he's passed out, some magisters come and say, hey, the guy that you had an argument with, he's dead, shot to death. And that girl that you were talking to last night, she's dead, shot to death. And he's like, I didn't do any of this. Come to find out that the woman that he was talking to was no mere regular psychic. It was Denegra in disguise. And she would go on to create something. Let me see if it's here in this version of the book. I'm going to skip ahead. Let me see. Yeah, I think this is it. Yeah, she went on to create this. This is called the Hellslinger Phantom, or the Hellslinger. It is a zombified clone of Alistair Kane. And his whole job is to kill Alistair Kane and everyone connected to him. His family, his friends, every woman he slept with, every person that he's never ever known. And it would just, and he's just this unstoppable force of death. And during the story, Kane returns home and he finds out that he meets up with his old girlfriend and her daughter. And he takes to his daughter, and he takes to the girl, and he's like, you're a pretty cool kid. Thanks, mister. Turns out that little girl is his daughter. He didn't know about her. And Denegra decides to kidnap his daughter, killing her mother. And so this is why Kane recruited these two into his Hellslingers. He is raising an army. He is going to personally invade Crix, kill anyone who gets in his way, and save his daughter. All because of Denegra. So yeah, just goes to show you how deep the lore gets and how characters are connected with each other, even if they're not in the same faction. All right, so now we got Wraith Witch Denegra. I ain't gonna lie, it looks kind of sexy. I ain't gonna lie. And Denegra the Soul Weaver. Yep, she is actually riding on a zombified dragon. Make that of it what you will. Goreshade, the Bastard. Now, he's not human. Not in the traditional way. He's actually an Iosan elf. And I want to get to him later. He actually used to be an Iosan lord who was in service of Ios as a nation, but then fell to become this lich, as you see here. And he actually has a story of redemption involved with him, but I'll get to that in a little bit when we go to check out the next faction. This is Goreshade the Cursed. That sword of his actually belongs to one of the missing Iosan gods. I can't forget which, but he stole it and he for a time used it as his personal weapon. Yeah, he used the weapon of a dead god. Then we have his final form, the Goreshade, the Lord of Ruin. This is just him going Super Saiyan. We have Master Necrotech Mortenbrea and Darlis. She's like another Lich Lord. Very good. Mortenbrea, Newman of Necrogenesis, is her evolved form. Lord Exumer Scavarius, cool name, even cooler look. The Pirate Queen Scar. She is one of the Scar. She's the absolute the ruler of all the scarred pirates that occupy the Scarred Islands. And she is a beast. This is her Scar Queen of the Broken Coast. Again, hot. Scary, but hot. Sturgis, the Corrupted. This was actually a warcaster from Signar. There's actually a living model of him in the Signar in the Signar faction. Let me see if I can't find it right quick for you guys. Let's see. No, where is he? I think he was a warcaster. I'm trying to find him. Ah, here he is. Commander Dylan Sturgis. Yeah. See, this is him. This is him. He got killed and he was reincarnated as a death wraith. And he is an absolute nightmare. And a lot of people in Signar are very saddened to see how he fell. And it's just sad. It's just sad to see what they did to him. This is what the Cricks do. They pervert life and death. Lich Lord Terminus. Another good one. Lich Lord Venithrax. Another good name. And the Witch Coven of Galgast with Elgagor. Basically, it's 3 witches commanding a gigantic magical weapon. I think these are part of the now legendary story, the Witchfire trilogy. Great stuff. Great stuff. All right, now we have the Warjacks. Now the Warjacks of the Cricks are slightly different. They don't call them Warjacks. They call them the light Warjacks are called Bonejacks. Heavy Warjacks to them are called Helljacks. And you can see why. And see, this is a corruptor. This is a death ripper, light warjack. A defiler. This is a dissector, a harrower, a hell diver, which is good for like pirate, scarred pirate variants because it can go underwater. The inflictor, the leviathan. The night wretch, the reaper, the ripjaw, another popular light warjack, the scavenger, the seether, and I'm not talking about the song by Velvet Revolver. Love Velvet Revolver. The shrike, the slayer, the stalker. Terminus's personal one, the Barathrum. Look at that shit. The Cankerworm, which is Aphixius's personal light warjack. In fact, his is unique. His is not a heavy warjack, it's a light warjack. It's just basically a living cyber snake. Creepy. The Death Jack. Badass. Erebus, which is Iscarivis's personal warjack. Charybdis, which is I think, let's see. Yeah, this is Arcarios's one, named after, of course, Charybdis. Yeah, this is a heavy warjack. The Malice. Yeah. The Nightmare. And finally, we have our Colossals, the Kraken. Shout out to Wendigoon. Yeah, if you don't know, Wendigoon always says when it comes to sea stories, anytime something happens, he said, well, I'm just going to say it was probably the Kraken. So that's the Kraken. Release the Kraken. And the Sepulchre. Big bastard. Big bastard. Yeah, the Cricks Warjacks are nightmares to look at. Now we look at the troops. And of course they have thralls. These are the authority marks for all the thralls. If you want to see what these are, just stop the video, pause the video, and just take a look. We have bile thralls, which basically throw bile at folks. Carrion thralls, which eat the dead. Mechanothralls, like the bare bones basic cyber henchmen. The Scarlock Commander. Brute thralls, which are heavier thralls. The Necrosurgeon and Stitch thralls, which are the mechanics for the Cricks. Soul Hunters. The Weather Witch Combine. This is a very good one. A Bloat Thrall. Iron Lich Overseer, which is like a Jack Marshal for them. The Machine Wraith. The Necrotech and Scrap Thralls. your bog standard pistol wraith. It's like the Hellslinger is basically an upgraded version of this one. This is the bog standard pistol wraith. A Scarlock Thrall, Soul Trapper, the War Witch Siren, Akarios, Scourge of the Meridius before he became a Warcaster, Bloat Thrall Overseer Mobius, that bastard, the Hellslinger Phantom, I've already talked about him, the Dargeth Wraith, that's just Death Incarnate right there, the Wraith Engine, which is their unique battle engine, and that's it for Crix. Yeah. Next up, we move on to our first properly non-human faction, the Retribution of Skyra. All right, let's go to the map. Now, you see, this is the Kingdom of Ios. Now, as I mentioned before in the last video, after the destruction of the Lyosan Empire, the Divine Court did lead the Iosan Elves eventually to this little section of Immoren and used it to carve out their own new kingdom before they left. Now, Ios is a very insular country, very closed off, very xenophobic. They have very little to interactions with any other race in all of Western Immoren. But all that changed. About a couple of years ago, a mysterious woman, very beautiful, appeared in Shire, the capital of Ios. She said nothing. She just walked into one of the Thanes, which is like the church, one of the churches of Iosan faith, and talked with the overseers there before she fell into a coma. This woman was Skyra, one of the 9 missing Iosan gods. Now, a paramilitary group known as the Retribution of Skyra believe that the disappearance of the... Now, you also got to understand something. Along this time, something was happening to the elves on a mystical standpoint. They kept... The children being born to the Iosans were born soulless, meaning they didn't have souls. They were alive in the biological sense. They could reason, they could talk, they could think for themselves. They just didn't have a soul. And so the Retribution believes that the Rivening, where all their warlocks went mad, started offing themselves, and the disappearance of the Iosan gods is some way connected to how humans got the gift of magic. And so their entire purpose is they go around killing arcanists, or basically human wizards and warcasters and what have you, believing them to be the reason why their people are suffering the way they are. And they recently discovered that one of their gods, Nisur, actually was in frozen suspended animation in the possession of the Grey Lord's Coven, the mystical arm of the military of the Khadoran Empire. So they have a reason not to like us. So yeah. So they don't exactly represent all elves. They are more like a splinter force. They're a military faction that just does their own thing. They don't represent the whole of the Iosan race. They just do their own things. They're sort of very fringe. Now, all right. First up, we got Ilara, Death Shadow. Very hot, very cute. We have Gareth, the Blade of the Retribution. Old man, but he'll fuck you up with those guns. And I should say that the Iosans, their technology is well above everyone else's. So it's the reason why their armor and weaponry, and you'll soon see their warjacks, look so vastly different from the ones that the other Iron Kingdoms use. Here's the one I mentioned, Lord Goreshade. Now, if the sword looks familiar, that's because that guy was... let me try to find him. That guy was Goreshade the Cursed, or Goreshade the Bastard. This is him. Now, in the lore, Lord Goreshade was actually a prominent leader amongst the Retribution. But then he started getting corrupted by the influence of the Crix and gave himself over to the Crix to become their willing servant. It's only recently that he actually came back from being their servant and now hopes to redeem himself by leading the retribution as a means of finding their gods and bringing their people back. Not a lot of people trust this guy for good reason. I mean, he's a fucking traitor, and he's still using the sword of one of their gods, but he's still trying to fight for some level of redemption for the shit that he did when he betrayed them and became a lich. Here's Magister Helena, Isira, the Sibyl of Dawn, another cutie. I have to say, elves always look fine, all of them. Elisa, the Night's Whisper, Lord Arcanist Osania. This guy he does time shenanigans and force fields and stuff. Adeptus Ron, Raven, the Eternal Light, another fine elf. Thyron, the Sword of Truth. Ooh, that's just badass right there. I love that sword design. Dawn Lord Viros, another prominent leader within the Retribution. Viceroy, the Incisor of the Dawn Guard. And also, all right, with that done, we are moving on to the Warjacks. But they're not called Warjacks in the Retribution. They're called Myrmidons. As you can see, they don't run on, they have unique abilities. They even have force fields, unlike the other Warjacks and Helljacks and other jacks of the other groups. And they're extreme. And if you want to damage them, you have to whittle down their force fields. They're not infinite. You just have to do a lot of damage to them before you actually start doing damage to the Myrmidons. It just goes to show you that despite them being depleted as they were from their glory days of the from the Laios Empire, elven technology still light years away from human technology. All right, we have the Aspis, the Banshee, the Chimera, the Demon or Daemon, if you want to get technical, the Gorgon, the Griffin. Lots of Roman stuff in this. The Hydra, the Manticore, the Phoenix, the Sphinx. Discordia, the personal warjack of Raven. The Hemera, Isira's personal warjack. The Hypnos, let's see, Ossian's personal warjack. The Imperatus, Virus's personal warjack. The Moros, let's see, Garib's personal warjack. As you can see, that's him with him right now. They're Colossals, the Helios, massive bastard, and the Hyperion, even bigger bastard. Yeah, the elves know how to build themselves some Myrmidons. Alright, take your time, man. I'll still be here. Alright, the soldiers, the Retribution. Now, the Retribution has this thing called Mage Hunters. Mage Hunters are specifically designed to go after and hunt down mages and arcanists for of the human kingdoms. They specialize in killing human wizards and stuff. We have the Dawn Guard Distectors, the Dawn Guard Invictors. The Dawn Guard are the premier military force for the Retribution. Their attachment, Officer and Standard. The Sentinels, the Dawn Guard Sentinels, their Officer and Standard. The Heavy Rifle Team, House Airman Swordsman, House Airwind Swordsman Officer and Standard. House Guard Halberders, their Officer and Standard. House Guard Riflemen, their Officers and Standard. House Sheely Arcanists, and of course they're the repair guys. House Sheely Battle Mages. House Vire Electromancers. Tell what these guys do just by that look on the picture. Mage Hunter Infiltrators. Their Mage Hunter Strike Force. The Strike Force Commander attachment. Eris, Mage Hunter Commander. Now, Eris is interesting in that she used to be a mercenary in the mercenary book, so you'll see her in a little bit when we get to the mercenaries, but she's officially become a member of the Retribution, so she's a Mage Hunter now. Rivals Defenders, the Soulless Escorts. These are the Soulless I was talking about when it came to when I mentioned Soulless on here. The Stormfall Archers, The Spears of Skyra, a elite group of elven of Iosan swordsmen. Arcanist mechanic, because you got to have mechanics. The Dawnguard Destor Thane, so nice solo here. Sentinel Skyer. The Thane Knight Guards, who basically these are the guys who guard the temples and shit. Ghost Sniper. House Sile Artifactor. House Sile Magister. Houseguard Thane. Lias Healer, which are healers. Mage Hunter, no more Mage Hunter assassins. A Priest of Nicaur. A Soulless Void Tracker. They use Soulless basically as meat shields and what have you. Arif Vir, Blade of Nicaur. Elaro Taro of the Third Chamber. Nice hot one. Fane Knight Scaran Islin. Nice one. Narn, Mage Hunter of Ios. Nail, who is another soulless. Yep, he's a soulless. Architect Force Generator, which is their battle engine. And Selena Ravenfall and the Nice Hunters, which are, these guys are from the the cousins of the Nice Hunters. They're mercenaries, but they will work for them. I'll get to mercenaries in a bit. Here's Eris again in her mercenary form. Here is her secondary mercenary form. Cyrus, I like this guy. Silas Wishnailer, Seeker, the Seeker, who is a group. I'll talk about Seekers in a little bit. And that's it for the retribution. Now, I already talked about this guy before, but let's talk about mercs. That's right, you can hire mercenaries in this group, like in this setting. Now, mercenaries are interesting in that they're not a faction unto themselves. They're just merely a group of models and warjacks that you can technically hire into your group, into your war group. Like if you need a little bit of extra muscle, or if you feel like your units aren't filling in a certain gap for you, you hire mercenaries. Now, mercenaries are interesting here in Warmachine in the fact that you can't get any mercenary that you want. You have to pick and choose, because every mercenary, underneath their name, as you will see, they will show which factions they will work for because of their own individual history. So if you're playing one faction and a mercenary that you want to play with has a specific faction they don't want to work for, then you can't have it in your army. You can also, if you're feeling grisly, you can actually have an entire army made of nothing but mercs, because there are mercenary warcasters. All right, this is just story fluff. All right, let's look at, and there are actually mercenary companies involved too. We got the Devil Dogs, we got the Lyalese Resistance, we got the Steelhead Mercenary Company, we got the 4-Star Syndicate, all of them. Now, this is Ashlyn Delise. And you can tell, let me just try to zoom out a little bit. This is far too close. All right. Ashlyn Delise, he's a mercenary warcaster from the country of Lael. She hates the Khadorans. She will not work with the Khadorans, nor will she work. She even says right here. Let me just zoom in for you right here. It says right here, mercenary. This model will work for Signar and the Protectorate, meaning that she won't work for the Cricks. She won't work for the Retribution. She definitely won't work for the Khadorans, because they invaded her country and now they occupy it. See, this is the flag of Lael. She's in the back. This is the background of the capital of Lael, and she's just gonna make all of them pay. She fucking hates Khador. Drake McBain. This guy will pretty much work for anybody. He'll work for the Crick, Signar, Khador, and the Protectorate. He just looks all badass, chopping on his cigar. Magnus the Traitor. He was actually a prominent war master under Ventor Ralthorn until he escaped and decided to become a soldier of fortune. He'll work for the Cricks, Khador, and the Protectorate, but he won't work for Signar because he views them as being too weak. This is his Magnus the Warlord form, Asheth Magnus. And we have some warjacks. We have let me scroll out a little bit. We have the Renegade. Yeah, shout outs to Lorenzo Lames. Yeah, like Battletech mercenaries. Yeah, they're pretty cool like that. Thanks for the comparison, my friend. And yeah, Renegade. Great show. Love it. Let's see. The Talon, the Vanguard, the Mangler, and also I should just say, because of the way warjacks work, you can hire any warjack you want. Warjacks don't care. The Mule, the Nomad, and now we have the units. We have from the Steelhead Battalion, we have the Steel Band Halberders, the Steelhead Cavalry, the Steelhead Riflemen. We have Alexis Sinner, the Risen, and the Thrall and her Thrall Warriors. She's interesting because she actually manifested her Warcaster abilities, and she actually has a powerful sword. Let me see if I can get it. Called Witchfire. And here's the thing about her: if anyone dies around her, whether she kills them or not, she takes a soul from them, and she can turn that soul into a thrall in her service. Like, that is some ridiculous stuff, and she's easy on the eyes. Scary, but easy on the eyes. Those are her thralls. Then we got another mercenary pair, Danon Blythe and Bull. It's a hot redhead and her Troken buddy. These are two of the best bounty hunters in the entirety of the Iron Kingdoms. You want someone found? These two will find them. We have Gregor Boomhowler and company. Yep, this guy is a fell caller amongst the Troken. Fell callers are guys who can sing songs at such degrees that they can create various effects. This guy can literally scream at people and they blow up. That's what fell callers do. They are incredibly powerful. And let's just look at the name, Gregor Boomhowler. almost a couple of syllables away from Boomhowler. We have Creel's Cutthroats, a nice little mercenary unit. Very nice. Captain Sam McCorn and the Devil Dogs, a female who took over the Devil Dogs mercenary group. Silene Rayfall and the Nice Hunters, we've already seen them. One of my favorite solos, in fact, the ones I used, and is actually a very good story that I actually read for this, Kale Belloc, a professional sniper. If you want somebody dead from long distance, you get Kale Belloc. I like his quote here. I like this quote here. He says, "All mercenaries are in the business of selling death for coin. They call me an assassin simply because I kill better and faster than they do." I love Kale Belloc and his weapon, Silence. Yeah. Reese's sniper rifle, Whisper, based off his gun. And he calls it Silence because, thanks to a magical enchantment, his rounds are completely silent. They don't make a noise. Yeah, he's not a warcaster or anything. That's just how his weapon works. There's actually an interesting story where he tracked a guy in the wildernesses of Kador. Very interesting sniper stuff, if you're interested in that. Let's see. Anastasia Debray, another great warcaster and still easy on the eyes. Standish Brocker, Steelhead Commander of Terran Crag. Yeah, if you want Steelheads, always bring Standish Brocker. He is an absolute monster when you peel him up with Steelheads. Madeline Corbeau, Auric Courtesan. Now, she's interesting in that she doesn't actually attack. She's a courtesan from the country of Ord. And she's basically a political mastermind. She doesn't have any attack or whatever, but what she does is, if she goes up to another character's model, she can kind of convince them to fight for her temporarily. Like, she'll just go up to them and say, "Hey, check out my jubblies. Don't you want to fight for me for a little bit?" I actually used her in combat. It's ridiculous to turn one of your... I've turned, like, devout Menites against their own people using her. She doesn't, like you said, she doesn't attack at all. She has no attack stat. See, she has no attack stat. All she does is just go up to him, show some jubblies, and they instantly fall for her. Yep. Rupert Carvello, the Piper of Ord. This guy he plays a pipe on the battlefield. Apparently, his family was supposedly killed by the Khadorans during the invasion, and he goes around the battlefields playing songs. His whole thing is that he will play different songs that have different effects once per turn. Like, they will give your units better defense, better attack, better this, better that. It's all good stuff. Eris, we've already mentioned her when we're doing Retribution. Orwin Midwinter, Rogue Inquisitor. He was one of Ventor's Inquisitors during his reign of terror. He's an old bastard who still hunts down Arcanists and wizards, but he'll play an important role in events to come. Remember that. Another one I had from another mercenary I had in my group. Reinhold, Gobber Speculator. Again, he doesn't attack. He's just there for he's just a well-traveled gobber. And people just have him around because he does some stuff. He does a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And people just bring him in because he's more like a good luck charm. Like, his only abilities are, let me bring it in. While base to base with this model, this unit can use one of the following special abilities. Lucky Charm. During this activation, the Warcaster gains an additional die on damage or attack rolls, discarding the lowest. Reload. During the activation this turn, the Warcaster can make an additional range attack, ignoring rate of fire. And Spyglass. Measure the distance between two models within the Warcaster's line of sight. These may not seem like much, but in gameplay, this stuff is very, very useful. So, while he can't, like with Madeline, he can't attack, but he's still useful to have around, depending on the build. Tyron de la Ravosi, Lily's Gun Mage. And this is actually a pair, Rutger Shaw and Tyron. They're both mercenaries who happen to actually run into each other, and they sort of are star-crossed lovers. They're constantly together. He loves her, she loves him, but he feels he doesn't deserve her, and she feels that she's not good enough for him. So they're always together. So it's sort of a romance between these two, which is one of the very few romances in this entire series that's actually very good. So these two are great. Harlan Versh, the Illuminated One. He's actually part of a group called the Order of the Illuminated Path. Or let me just check right quick. Or the Order of the Illumination. And he hunts down Arcanists and he hunts down evil Warcasters and what have you. And he's just a sort of a witch hunter of sorts. He looks pretty cool, doesn't he? Gorman DeWolf, Rogue Alchemist. This guy has another book about him. This is a guy who just goes around creating different concoctions and bombs and what have you. Very useful in terms of usefulness for the world of Warmachine. He just has different alchemical grenades. He can do sticky stuff, he can throw acid, he can throw bombs. Very useful. Kind of a quirky sort of guy, but he's pretty cool. I actually read another book about him on my channel. And now, what we're all probably waiting for, pirates. Yes, pirates. And I'm not talking about the scarred pirates, the pirates of the Broken Coast. Now, there are three prominent pirates that exist on the Broken Coast, and I'm about to get into them. First and foremost, we have Fiona the Black, Thammarite. Very interesting woman who thinks she can get away with whatever she wants because she has the wiles to do it. Can wrap any man around her finger, a powerful mistress of the arcane arts. But she chose to partner herself with Captain Bartolo Montador. Yep, aka Broadsides Bart. You can tell what kind of guy he is. This guy is the very definition of pirate. If I could equate him to someone, it would be Gold Roger. Just look at him. He strides the line expertly between privateer and pirate because apparently he has a letter of marque from the King of Ord, Barth Cathor III. Now, if those who don't know, a letter of marque is basically a permission slip for a person to engage in legalized piracy or privateering, so long as that he stays within the letter of the law. And as you can see, and this is what I love about him is his cybernetic arm, and in it is a cannon, and he calls the cannon Ace. Let's get it. It is literally an ace up his sleeve. Oh, Broadside Bart is amazing. He is awesome. And now we move on to the Talon Charter, which this was the group that I was going to use before I got out of the game. Now, the Talon Charter, the origin is of this man, Captain Phineas Shea. Shea was a brilliant young man who was sort of lazy in his life. He manifested the Warcaster ability, but flunked out of the Signar Military Academy, so he joined the Makarian League, which is like the biggest shipping magnet in the entirety of Immoren. He was assigned aboard a ship called the Exeter, where he easily made friends due to his good looks and charming personality, one of which being the ship's financier, Joan Rockbottom. Unfortunately, the captain of the Exeter was horrifically paranoid and extremely jealous. One day, he saw the two of them meeting and accused them of plotting mutiny. He had Rockbottom put in prison in the brig and had Shea thrown overboard. He would have drowned in the Meridius if the ship's bosun hadn't fished him out, and then he plotted a mutiny proper. He wasn't planning a mutiny. He was just hanging out with one of his besties, but now he's like, okay, you want a fucking mutiny? You get one. And it also didn't help the captain that most of the crew just did not fucking like him. So the mutiny was a success, but the captain, being the dick that he is, set off the powder keg, the powder explosions, a powder keg within the ship, causing it to blow up. Fortunately, everyone was able to get off the ship intact, but that it still didn't go too well for him. I'll leave his fate in a couple of sections. So, Shade would originally wanted to try to explain his position, but the Makarian League wasn't having it and branded him and his crew mutineers and pirates. And so they enacted the Talon Charter, which is, we actually have a copy of it. The Talon Charter, which is basically a declaration of war against the Makarian League and all of its allies. And here is where all the members of the and officers of the crew signed their names, saying that we're going to be doing this and we're going to fuck shit up. That's Shay's wanted poster. And to aid them off, they got this, the ship in the foreground, their personal flagship, the Talon. Nice little ship. Nice, great one. Now, the interesting thing is, you can actually field the entire Talon Charter if you want as an army, because the solos are incredibly cheap. You can get them, and then you could just bolster your units with other pirates. Shea himself, he's very low-key as far as piracy goes. He's just trying to make a future for himself and his crew, but he's still an ambitious and powerful captain. Here's some warjacks: the Buccaneer, the Freebooter, the Mariner, and these are the Press Gangers. Press Gangers are a unique type of Sea Dog unit where if they box in and beat a particular character, they can take that character out and then recruit him as a Sea Dog. So as long as you got these guys and your opponent has a good deal of infantry, you can have a shit ton of Sea Dogs. And these are the Sea Dogs. They're basically the bread and butter of any good pirate faction. And the whole thing with the Talon is the officers are there to just make these guys better. They can make them shoot better, make them harder to hit, make them fight better. If you're going to the Talon Charter, bring a healthy number of Sea Dogs. They're expensive, but with the right build, they're worth it. These, of course, have their own riflemen, the Sea Dog Riflemen, and the Sea Dog Deck Crew. Now we're into the officers themselves. First, we have the Quartermaster, Mr. Walls. Another familiar name. I actually took Lucas's code name when he was in the P-Town from him. This is Mr. Walls. The Quartermaster, he has a bunch of guns on himself, an eye patch, and a monkey from the continent of Zoom. He oftentimes blows most of his money on treating the swabs and Sea Dogs to food, grog, and the occasional woman. He does, technically, his loss of his eye does give him crippling headaches, but he's still a rather nice man. Don't let his appearance fool you, he's really cool. Now we have one of the main reasons why you want to field the Talon Charter. This, my friends, is the Commodore Cannon, considered by many, and myself included, to being the best piece of artillery in the whole fucking game. The Commodore Cannon is a royal weight cannon that was salvaged from the Exeter before it was destroyed by its captain. It is a powerful piece of weaponry that shoots multiple types of ammunition, has incredible range, and it will blow up and kill anything within that range. It does have a crew of sea dogs, but any sea dogs that you have, in case the crew is killed, any sea dogs can go over there and use it themselves. Now, you see that skeleton? That's what's left of the captain of the Exeter. He was strapped to the cannon, and they just fired it until he died, and his body was just there as a grisly reminder of those who fought with the Talon Charter. Now, the Commodore cannon can only be fielded if you're using Phineas Shea. Shea himself now Shea is a warcaster, meaning that unless you use the Talon Charter specifically with him as the warcaster leader, no other faction can use this beautiful bastard. So if you're going to play the Talon Charter, you are required to bring this beautiful son of a bitch into the battlefield with you. This is the scariest thing that the opposing team will see, because the Commodore cannon is mean. Next up, these are not exactly members of the crew, but they are on the ship itself. Lady Ayana and Master Hulk. Now, Ayana herself is an Iosan elf, which is odd to see outside of Ios. She's actually a member of a group called the Seekers, whose specific job is to go about into Immoren and try to find the whereabouts and or location of all of the Iosan gods, some information about them. She's a mistress. She's a very good conversationalist and a master of the mystical arts. Moreover, she chose as her bodyguard the man next to her, Master Hulk. Now, why she chose a elf decided to tarry with a human, we'll never know. She doesn't really talk much about herself. She typically weaves conversations in such a way that if you ask her about her past, she would turn around and go into a lengthy discussion about the history of Jello pudding if you let her do it. And anyone who gets near her will either get cut or shot by Master Hulk. This is not a member of the Talon Charter. He's actually a part of Broadside Bart's crew. This is Bloody Bradigan. He is one of the big melee beef sticks of the series that you can hire. Bradigan used to be a pit fighter in Five Fingers, which is a town on the Broken Coast. Unfortunately, he's might have some developmental issues, because he can swing from being amiable and nice to going out and just going absolutely apeshit on you. He can talk to you for 1 second and be all nice and cool. Next minute, he's turning your face into fucking hamburger for no reason at all. Hence why he spends most of his time in the brig as opposed to just being a part of the crew. Next, we have the bosun of the Talon, Bosun Grogspar Trollkin. He is the bosun who actually fished Shea out of the drink during the Exeter mutiny. And he is actually the one who killed the captain of the Exeter, because Grogspar has this thing where he gets really attached to the ships he serves on, more even than the crew. So when the captain destroyed the Exeter, he took that personally. So he strapped the captain to the Commodore cannon and just fired it until he died from it. Yeah, you can see what kind of guy this is, Bosun Grogspar. Dirty Meg, another member of Broadside Bart's crew. She's big, she's busty, and she can take apart a warjack in under 10 seconds. She's that good. Next, we have another rather unique member of the Talon Charter, Doc Killingsworth, the Talon's cook/doctor. Now, I want to make this perfectly clear if it isn't by his picture. Doc Killingsworth is not a doctor. He did not go to any kind of medical academy. He did not study under any doctors. He did not have any kind of medical degree whatsoever. And he used to be a butcher. And in his own words, butchering meat and butchering people are about the same thing. So he uses his experience as a butcher to cut into people. Now, it should be noted that Doc is actually a pretty competent doctor. It's just that it's not because of his skill, but also because folks are just tough. Now, if he's around and sea dogs get knocked down and they get hurt, they'll just shrug it off and get tough, because they don't want Doc cutting into you with those knives of his. Because, yeah, That's not him after a battle. That's Doc pretty much 24/7. He does not believe in sterilization. His knives are dirty, and he keeps them dirty on purpose because in battle, he can give his opponents blood poisoning if you stab him. Now, Doc is now, as befitting his name, Doc also is a pretty good cook. He actually can put on a pretty decent spread due to his background as a chef. But then again, the one thing you never want to do when it comes to Doc Killingsworth's food is ask him where the meat comes from. And I don't mean just like rats and dogs and what have you. There have been witness reports of Doc going about an enemy ship just picking up random pieces of flesh and muscle and organs. And then the night after the battle, the food just all of a sudden has a lot of meat on it. So the crew just doesn't ask questions when it comes to Doc's food. Yeah, don't ask questions. And we actually have a recipe right here for Talon stew written by Doc himself. And I'm going to read it to you right now. All right, Talon stew serves 100. 15 pounds of fresh meat, any kind. 10 pounds aged pepper meat, any kind. Remove the maggots. 5 cups olive oil, butter, bacon grease, or lard. 120 cloves of garlic. 1 barrel meat stock or stew pot leavings. 2 fistfuls of dried spices and or leaves. 1 sack of chopped potatoes. 1 sack chopped onions. Half a sack chopped carrots, tomatoes, or other vegetables not rotted through, although mold is okay. Toss into a pot with weak ale or cheap wine, not 5 fingers water, you'll get sick. Cook for at least 12 hours, keep indefinitely on low heat. Yeah, Gordon Ramsay, this guy is not. Next up, we have the first mate of the Talon Charter, the lovely, the deadly First Mate Hawk. Now, her past is a mystery only to anyone who doesn't know it. Even her name is a mystery. She just goes by Hawk. She made the acquaintance of the crew early on and became the first mate of the Talon. Despite the fact that she's a woman, the members of the Talon actually respect her. In some cases, respect her more than the captain. She's one of the few people who can talk back to Captain Shay and not get any guff for it. If you need something done, you oftentimes go to First Mate Hawk. And there's actually her power is that if she takes a ranged attack, then one of the sea dogs will jump in the way for her because, well, look at her. Now, one of the things about First Mate Hawk is the fact of her relationship with Shay, which is to say, it's rather close. And by rather close, I mean they fucking. Yeah, one of the books that I read about the Talon Charter, it pretty much explicitly shows the two of them having sex. Now, whether or not the crew knows this or not is up for debate. It says that either the crew doesn't know that the two of them are having sex, or that they do know, but they have too much respect for the two of them to bring it up outside of proper company. So it's never really mentioned. But she may be spiteful with Shay, but in combat, she won't let anybody hurt him. You get close to Captain Shay, expect yourself to be cut to pieces by those cutlasses of hers, which she's very good at using. There's that. Finally, we have Lord Joan Rockbottom, Expedition Financier. And he is a rural folk. That's right, he is a dwarf. He is the financier who keeps all of the Talon's things running. He pays out the pay, he sorts out the swag, he even has a small island village called Bottomington that he happens to own. His friendship with Shay was the reason for the entire Exeter mutiny and destruction, and he is forever grateful to Shay for doing it. Don't let this guy's diminutive stature fool you, he will fuck you up, as all of them do. His whole thing is that he has these coins that he can spin on a dime that will improve Sea Dog's basic stats. It's a finite sort of, he just throws the coins at the Sea Dog and say, hey, you, be tougher. And hey, you, shoot gooder. He doesn't have an infinite supply of coins, but so long as you just got to ration them out when you need them. And that little shotgun is not a shotgun. That is actually a blowtorch. That is a flamethrower, and he will barbecue a bunch of guys who get close to him. It should be noted that his leg was injured during the Exeter mutiny, and it had to be cut off by Doc Killingsworth, saving his life from gangrene. So Doc isn't all shit. Next, we have the final member of Broadside Bart's crew, Master Gunner Dougal McNow, who is a master explosive expert who happens to run around barefoot everywhere because reasons. Now, humans aren't the only humans are. Oh, hey, Mike, I didn't see you there. Ba weep granny wop needy bong. Universal greeting. Nice. Now, rules aren't the only the humans aren't the only ones with mercenaries. The dwarves of Rule have mercenaries too. And we have a couple of them. And that would be the famous Steelforge Commission, which is the famous Walls of Rule. You can see why the Orgoth never got past them. Those defenses are great. Let's see. The Hammerfall Highforged Gunnery Corps. So first we have Grunton Grundback, mercenary warcaster. Durgan Madhammer. Basically, this guy loves explosions. He loves everything that goes boom. He considers explosions to be an art form. Look at him. And of course, the Rule folk have their own warcasters and have their own warjacks. This is the Grundback Blaster, Grundback Gunner, the Grundback Avalanchier, Grogson Basher, the Grogson Driller, the Rothhammer Rock Ram, great name, Hammerfall High Shield Gun Corps and their attachment, the Hogan Forge Forge Guard, the Hogan Hordes Artillery Corps, and we have Hearn and June, mercenary character unit. Like, this is an interesting relationship. Joan is an Orgren, and Hearn is the Hearn is the Orgren, the big guy, and Joan is the little guy. Joan was a weapons designer who created a very powerful and dangerous hand cannon called the Arquebus. You see that him holding right there. But he could find no one who could accurately wield it until he ran into Hearn. Hearn, being an Orgren, found his calling serving under this guy, and they formed a very powerful mercenary duo. I've never seen anyone field them, but I heard good things about them. Orgren Bokur. Now, the thing with Orgrens are, Orgrens do live in Rule, but they're not considered citizens. You see, Orgrens have this thing where they spend their lives as searching for a master to serve, because that's all about their entire lives is serving a master. And a Bokur is basically a Orgren who has yet to find a master. So when they find them, they eventually will find them and find someone to serve, and they will serve them for the rest of their lives. They will follow their orders to the letter. And in one case of a particular Orgren mercenary, it wasn't always good. And then we have another solo, Thor Steinhammer. And as you can clearly see, a certain dwarf that we all know and love was obviously inspired by him. In fact, I gave my artist this picture to draw out Thor. Thor's name and personality and appearance all come from this guy. So yeah, you're seeing a lot of where a lot of my inspiration for my stuff came from. So say hello to Thor. This is Thor. Alright, and that's it for the Mercs of Warmachine. Now I think it's about time for us to move on to the other side of Warmachine and Hordes. We are going to move over to the Hordes side of this. And thankfully, there are not many factions in this. Only about 4 major ones and 2 minor ones. And the first one is the Scorn Empire. Let's bring up the map. The Scorn exists on the on 2 halves of the Bloodstone Marshes, and they've expanded their empire. Now, to explain, The Scorn were not a united people up until recently. They were actually a set of separate houses. The Scorn are a race of inhuman-like lizard people who live for warfare. They fight. This is what they do. For them, they heard that they find the concept of peace to be disgusting. They fight for hokusune, for honor. And they do this because of their religious beliefs. You see, the Scorn don't have a creator mythos. They don't have gods. They don't have a heaven. They don't have a hell. They have nothing. As when a Scorn dies, they believe that if they die, they are sent to the void, which is a endless black expanse where there is nothing. No light, no darkness, no good, no evil, no up or down. Your soul just wanders in oblivion forever. So they found a way to get past this by something called exaltation. When a Scorn dies in honorable combat, or in combat in general, their souls can be taken from their bodies at the moment of death and placed inside of these stone statues or pillars, and they're kept inside their houses. They're technically, they're like the Klingon version of house, not an actual house. So anytime members of their house want to be inspired, they want experience, they want something to understand, they need some experience from someone else, they will go to these living stone pillars, which are their ancestors, and just talk to them and just say, hey, I need some help. You can help me out, and they'll give them an experience. Now, all this changed in the last couple of years because from across the Bloodstone Marshes, a man appeared, the first human that the Scorn had ever seen. They immediately tried to enslave it because the Scorn are heavy into slavery. The human proved himself to be far greater than they originally thought, as he effortlessly defeated every person who came in front of him. Soon and because he defeated them, they were subjugated to his will, because he beat them in combat. Soon, house upon house began sending warriors, hearing about this strange human creature that's been beating their asses. Soon word began to spread about this guy, some even calling him Scorn Reborn, a Scorn soul reborn into the body of a human. And soon houses began to willingly come under his leadership. They willingly began to follow him. And soon the entire Scorn race had been conquered by one man single-handedly. That man was the deposed king of Signar, Ventor Ralthorn IV. That's right. After the Lion's Coup, his war balloon drifted over the Bloodstone Marshes and crashed. He walked to the Scorn territory, proceeded to beat everyone's ass until he became his king. Thanks to his leadership, Ventor turned all these desperate houses, this entire race, into an empire. And yeah, dun dun dun. So his job, he turned them into an empire, a proper fighting force, with the goal of crossing the Bloodstone Marshes and conquering the kingdoms of men. Because he told them stories of you can have all this stuff, all these human slaves, and all these creatures could be yours. Follow me and you will lead. And he led them across the Bloodstone Marshes until they found out that he was full of bullshit, because it turns out that he had no plans of leading them into to lead them into greatness. He simply wanted to use them as a way of getting back on the Signarin throne, and once he got the throne, he would toss them away. Fortunately, the Scorn found out about this and kicked him out, but they still remained a united empire. And they still have aspirations of conquest and slavery. Yep, Mike Show, a Scorn not born of scorn. Indeed, indeed. So yeah, the Scorn are bastards, and they're masters of this type of magic called mortalurgy. It's basically the manipulation of pain. Like, pain can become a power by inflicting and drawing on the pain of all the pain that you inflict upon others. They can use it to empower their magic. That's their whole play style. Pain turned into power. And you're gonna see some weird shit on this. So let's go to the warlocks. You see, in hordes, they have different terms for things. Like warcasters are warlocks, war beast in place of war jacks, and you have fury instead of focus. That's gameplay stuff, and I won't get into that. So the warlocks of the Scorn, we have Lord Tyrant Herexis. Look at these bastards, big ugly. We have Lord Arbiter Herexis, his evolved form. We have Archdomina Makeda. Now, Makeda is interesting because she was actually the leader of her own house, and she had heard the stories of the conqueror Ventor, and he easily defeated her. And when she was on her, she expected him to kill her, but he's like, "You're too valuable to die. Join me." And she became effectively his second in command. Now, when Ventor was revealed that he didn't give two shits about anybody in the entirety of the Scorn Empire, she became the new leader of the Scorn Empire. She became the Supreme Archdomina Makeda. Effectively, she is the new ruler of the of this burgeoning empire, and she is a brilliant swordsman. And they drew her hot in the book that she was in. I don't know why. She was hot. I won't show it now. Makeda and the Exalted Court. This is her final form, and those guys are actually exalted warriors from her house. So yeah. Next, we have Voidseeker Mordekar. Now, Voidseeker Mordekar is interesting, is because he actually did die, but his soul wasn't exalted, so he actually went into the void, and he came back more powerful. So he's actually one of the few characters to have died and actually come back to life. And even amongst the Scorn, he is seen as kind of creepy. Master Tormentor Morgul. This guy was Ventor's personal assassin and torture master. If something needed to be done in the shadows, Ventor had this guy. Then he became Lord Assassin Morgul. And then he became Dominar Morgul and his escorts. But yeah. Master Aesthetic Narshish. Nice. All right. This is Rashef. Now, boys, up to this point, the one thing you can see about all the Scorn you've seen so far is that they all look like badasses. They got swords, they got whips, they got daggers, they all got all these kind of weapons, and they look like they could beat 10 kinds of ass with a few levels of ass left over. That's because they all follow Hukshune, which is honor. Like all Scorn should strive for perfection in martial combat. So that's why they all look like they're like legitimate ass beaters. And then there is Rashef. And I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to show you his picture to see why he's so different from all the other Scorn that you've seen so far. Drink that in. If I had a button for Scott Steiner saying fat ass, I would press it many times. Because there is no two ways about it. Rashef is a fat ass. He's a fat ass. Look at that fat ass. You're fat. This fat son of a bitch laying around doing nothing. He's fat. Yeah, and this is not because of some kind of curse or anything like that. Rashef is just lazy. Like, he does not want to be a warrior. His very appearance pisses all the other Scorn off because he doesn't do anything. He's just lazy. He just sits around eating fine food. He's like, I don't want to be no damn warrior. I just want to laze out and do nothing. Now, there are two reasons why he is a warlock. First, his house produces some of the best war beasts in the entire Scorn Empire. Their quality is second to none, so he has economic power. Secondly, Rashef is an extremely powerful warlock in terms of magical ability. We're talking about a guy who could literally point at a guy and make him explode. His magical prowess. Yes, Mike. Yes, thank you. The Garfield of the Scorn. If Garfield could make someone blow up by Scorn by just pointing at him. And yeah, okay. Let's go. I'm just gonna go here. I'm just gonna zoom here. One of his abilities, Impervious Flesh. When this model suffers a damage roll, roll one fewer. And this model cannot be knocked down because his fat ass is lounging about on a catafalque. And the reason why he has impenetrable skin is because he's so goddamn fat. Yeah, he is so fat that his fat prevents him from being hurt severely. Just wow. Badashish. Badashish. Alright, we have Beastmaster Zerkar. Hardcore metal right there. Tyrant Xerxes, one of the best warriors in all of the Scorn. Xerxes, the Fury of Halak, his cavalry form. Lord Tyrant Zadesh, another great warrior. Supreme Adeptum of Zal and Corvus. Nice. Zal, the Ancestral Advocate. And now we have the War Beasts. Now, the War Beasts come in multiple varieties. We have Cyclopses, which are basically gigantic beings with one eye and giant tusks. They're like elephants on PED. Yeah, that's a Cyclops. Yeah, Cyclopses. You got Titans, which are just as big. You have... And of course the horde equivalent of colossals, they have gargantuans. This poor son of a bitch is an agonizer. Agonizers, they can attack, but their primary thing is just to be in pain. They are born and bred to be in constant abject agony. Their life is pain. They are created for the sole purpose that the Scorn feed off their pain for their morthalurgy. Their pain only ends when they die, and they are not allowed to die that much. So yeah, his whole thing is life is pain, and then you die. He is the living embodiment of that. All right, we have the Ardress Sentinels, the Ardress Soldier, which is a type of spider. We have an Archidon, which is like a lesser dragon of sorts. We have a Basilisk, which is another breed of war beasts that they have. Basilisks. A Basilisk Kree. A Bronzeback Titan. A Cyclops Brute. A Cyclops Raider. Cyclops Savage. A Cyclops Shaman. A Razor Worm. Nasty bastards. You don't want to run into them in the desert. A Reptile Hound, a Rhyodon. No, not Rhydon, Rhyodon. Don't sue me, Nintendo. A Scarab Pack, a Titan Cannoneer, which is a Titan with a fucking giant cannon. A Titan Gladiator, a Titan Sentry. We have Chiron. I think this is the personal war beast of Zextar. The Spoiler, which is Mordecai's personal war beast. Moloch Karn, a Cyclops in the service of Makeda. Tiburon, Xerxes' personal war beast. Look at that bastard. Their first gargantuan, the Desert Hydra. Yeah, I think I don't want to meet that thing in the desert. I am Mammoth, which is their other one, which is big. Now we have the Warriors of the Scorn. Here are their structures and their ranks. If you want to read all this, stop the video on VOD. We have the Annihilators. Excuse me. We have the Annihilators. Plague-Giver Beast Handlers. Pain-Giver Blood Runners. Pain-Givers are basically the guys who just keep the bit. Yeah, the Scorn are terrifying stuff. They love slaves and they love pain. Venator Catapult Crew. Flare Catapult Crew. Venator Reavers. Venator Reavers with their attachment. Venator Slingers. Exotal or Stalwart, Soulwards. These are the guys who actually perform exaltation and actually take the souls of scorn and put them into stones and statues and stuff. These are the guys that actually do that. Mortalurger Willbreaker, Paingiver Bloodrunner Master Tormentor, long name. Paingiver Taskmaster. No, not the Marvel character. No, not Sullivan. No, not. This is a different Taskmaster. Venator Darok, a Void Spirit. Optimus Marketh, another solo. Tyrant Zadesh, before he became a Warcaster. And their battle engine, the Seam Animathrax. And that's it for the Scorn. All right, next up, let's get away from the horrible slavers and let's get to something a little bit more tame. Now we have the Circle of Boros, or Blackclads is for short. Now, this is not their country. They're not a faction in the same way as the others are. They're not a country. The Circle of Boros is actually a small, clandestine, secretive order of monks and druids who believe in the natural order of things and serve a nature god they call Boros. Now, there's been some debate on whether or not Boros is actually an aspect of the Devourer Worm or even the worm itself, but many Blackclads assert that the Devourer Worm and Boros are two completely separate entities. Now, the Circle of Boros, they may seem peaceful, but they're more like eco-terrorists. They believe that the constant encroachment of civilization and cities and industrialness is disrupting the balance of nature, and they fear that this will draw the attention of the Devourer Worm back to Cain and a catastrophe would take place. So they keep humanity's spread to the wilderness at bay using hit-and-run tactics and magic and creatures and such. Now, the reason why this is put into like 3 different colors is because that these are the dominions. You got the Eastern Dominion, the Northern Dominion, and the Southern Dominion. The organizational structure of the Blackclads, let me see if I can bring it up. I know they got it on here. All right. Now, each of the dominions is ruled over by an omnipotent. The omnipotent is right in the center. Each omnipotent are equal in power, and they each command their own distinctive districts. Now, the Circle of Boros is not a unified force in sort of that same way as everybody else because it's very, very political. Everyone is trying to get over on everyone else. Everyone is trying to get over, trying to get higher up in the hierarchy of the circle through political means. Like, if someone in the circle and you're in the circle, they do you a favor, they're not doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're like, I did you a favor. Remember this. I'm going to want another favor. Like, it's like the militarist version of doing someone a solid. They want a solid in return. So no one really does anything in the circle out of pure altruism. It's very, very political. They have many different races and many different tribes of humans, most notably the Tharns, which I'll get into in a little bit, and many different creatures that serve them. And to become a member of the Blackclads, you have to undergo something called the wilding. It's where, as a youth, you hear the voice of the wild itself. It spurs into you, and it can change your behavior to the point where your family and friends don't even want to deal with you. And a lot of times, they will give their family member or friend or child, whoever has the wilding, over to the Blackclads willingly. Like, take them. We don't want them. So, all right, that out of the way. Let's get to the Warlocks. Now, all the Warlocks and officers within the Circle of Boros, they all have like epitaphs. So they have names and then an epitaph. All right. First, we have Balder the Stone Cleaver. Don't let his appearance and intimidating personality fool you and that big stone sword. Balder is actually one of, if not the nicest and most approachable members of the Blackclads. Even though he wields significant influence within the organization, he does not use it. He does not care for the politicking and backbiting and deals and solids. He just enjoys just being around nature. And typically, any good encounter that any outsiders have with the Blackclads, it's typically because of Balder. He's a fierce fighter. Don't get me wrong. You see that big fuck off stone cleaver? He'll use that shit. He's peaceful to a regard, but he'll still fuck your shit up. That is until he became Balder the Stone Soul. In more recent events, Balder had actually died, and Ouroboros decided that that something was coming, and he needed Balder back on Cain. So he brought him back to life, more powerful but a bit unhinged. He's not cruel or anything, but he knows that his return time back on Cain is extremely limited. So there is an urgency in his movements. He's not as nice as he was before. He just knows, I don't have much time left. I got to get some shit done. We have Grail the Froststrider, an apprentice to Balder. Pretty nice guy. Next, we have Kaya the Wildborn. Kaya has a similar relationship to Balder that Danegra has with Aphixius. She's like his daughter. Like he personally trained her, raised her, took her in, and their relationship is just very, very close. Like whenever he does something for Kaya, it's out of pure altruism, out of pure love, because he sees her as a daughter and sees her potential and doesn't want her to be used and manipulated by other members of the group. Next, we have Kaya the Moon Hunter and her pet Argus, Laris. Yep. Next, we have Kaya the Wildheart, now riding on her pet wolf as a cavalry unit. Now we have Cromac the Ravenous. Now, Cromac is the chieftain of the tribe of Tharns. The Tharns are basically a tribe of ballistic, horrific cannibal killers. On the fringes of the Iron Kingdoms, the Tharns are a thorn. They can wipe out entire villages in a single night and just kill and eat and what have you. And Cromac is one of their leaders. And there's a reason why he's so dangerous, is because of this. He has the power to shapeshift into that. Just an unhinged beast, literally. Cromac the Ravenous. And he is not a joke. He will fuck you up. Now, this is Cromac, champion of the worm. And this is where he gets that axe, and he is in this permanent state of bestialness. The axe is actually called Rafrock, and it is a artifact that belonged to the leader of the Mulgur thousands of years ago. It was actually used by a Trollkin, but then he lost it, and Cromac found it, and now he's the champion of the worm. And he is unhinged, at least. Kruger, the Storm Wraith. This guy is like Magneto with the powers of storm. He is a literal walking category 5 hurricane. He's like every natural disaster rolled into one. He'll bring down lightning, gale force winds, tornadoes, what have you. He has the powers of storm, but the mentality of Magneto. He does whatever is necessary to see his stuff done, and he has done some incredibly crazy shit. And this is his evolved form, Kruger the Storm Lord. Here's Morshar the Desert Walker. Old man, but with a scythe. Morvana the Autumn Blade. Now, she is one of the more politically minded members of the circle. In fact, she was the reason why Cromac initially joined the Circle of Boros as a warlock, because of the promise of that Punani. Yeah, she was like, if you join me, you could have all this. And he's like, yeah. So yeah, she is not above using her physical beauty and her women and wiles to get what she wants. She is as treacherous and duplicitous as they come. Thankfully, when Cromac became the champion of the worm, he's like, bitch, you ain't gonna give me shit. I'm tired of that shit. Be gone, thought. Yeah. Here is the Dawn Shadow, where she's riding riding an elk. She's hot, but I still wouldn't do her. Tanith the Feral Song, a young warlock. Bridges Thorol the Rune Carver, another powerful warlock. Una the Sky Hunter, mistress of the sky. Wormwood, the Tree of Fate, and Cassius the Oathkeeper. Now, Wormwood, this tree, is said to be directly connected to Ouroboros and has prophetic powers. And it's a very powerful thing, and it's actually outside of the command structure of the Circle of Boros because of its status as being a living conduit to Boros itself. Also, it can eat you if you don't pay it enough respect. Now for the War Beast, another varied selection of War Beasts and Warcasters. They actually have two types. You have the regular War Beasts, and they have Wolves, which are like gigantic constructs animated through magic. That's one of them right there. So we have an Argus Moonhound. Arguses are basically what they look like. They're two-headed dogs. Very vicious, but if you can manage to tame them, they are very loyal and very hardened guard dogs. And they're just actually very cool. Arguses. And there are many types of Arguses. Now we have a Feral Warp Wolf. We have satyrs in this. This is a gnarlhorn satyr. Goraxes. Now, Goraxes actually are very, very dangerous. They are one of the most dangerous creatures in all of immoren. They are ornery, they smell bad, they're vicious, and you better kill them with the first shot because they have this thing where if they're attacked, doesn't matter who did it, they will actually become extra like aggroed, and they'll become stronger the more you hurt it, and they will be homicidally driven to kill whatever hurt them. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter if it's friend or foe, you hurt this thing, it'll just go ape shit and then try to kill you and then eat you. Goraxes are, even for the circle, Goraxes are extremely hard to control. Then we have a pureblood wolf. Razorwind Griffins, they have Griffins. A Riphorn Satyr. A Rotterhorn Griffin. A Scarsfell Griffin from the Scarsfell Mountains. A Shadowhorn Satyr. A Warp Stalker, the only Warp Wolf that actually uses a sword. A Wild Argus, there are different types of Arguses. This is a Winter Argus. A Wold Giant Guardian, this is a construct, the first construct of the circle. This is a Wold Warden. This is a Wold Watcher. A Wold Weird. We have Benros, the Elderhorn, the personal war beast of Morvana. We have Ginthrax, Chromax, personal war beast, a Warwolf. Loki, which is let's see, Tanip's personal war beast. God damn, that's metal. Megalith, my friend Dante's favorite Circle war beast. He played Circle. This was his favorite one. And this is Balder's Balder the Stonecleaver's personal warjack. Interesting fun joke. The position that they have for Megalith, he has his arms up, like straight up in the air, and and whenever Dante played Megalith, whenever he moved it, he always say he looked like he's just saying happy birthday. So anytime he gets in the battle with Megalith, he would always say happy birthday because his arms would just stick straight up. Happy birthday. Okay, enough jokes. We have Storm Raptor, which is their gargantuan, just a big thunderbird, and the Wold Wrath, a giant wold warden. All right, now we got our warriors. Of course, we got the Tharns. We got the Reavers of Ouroboros, their chief and standard. The Shifting Stones. These are part of what makes Circle so dangerous because they have great movement shenanigans. These are basically let you teleport around the arena. They don't attack or nothing. They don't do anything. They just let you teleport. Cool. Stonekeeper, the Sentry Stone and Mannequins. Stone Ward and Woad Stalkers. Warpborn Skinwalkers. Warpborn Skinwalker Alpha. Wolves of Ouroboros, their chieftain and standard. The Death Wolves, which is a unit, and as you can see what these guys are all about. Metal. The Black-clad Stone Shaper, Black-clad Wayfarers, Druid Wielders, Gallows Grove, the Reeve Hunter, Wolflord Morang, that's him, Una, the Falconeer, before she became a Warcaster, Celestial Fulgrim, which is the battle engine, which just basically an engine that works on shit. And that's it for the Circle of Boros. Now, finally, we move on to the Troll Bloods. Probably the newest of all the factions. And that's saying something. Alright, their faction map, not very big. It's scared out. Now, the Trollkins, they only recently united. Now, the Trollkins were a race that had actually integrated themselves pretty well in the kingdoms of the Iron Kingdoms. They have Kips, they have Kriels, which is like family units, like clans. They're very Scottish like that. Now, because of all this shit that's going on, you got the Circle of Boros doing shit. You got the Scorns coming in. You got the Legion. You got all this stuff coming from them at every side, and the humans are just not helping them because they don't have the resources, that they just don't want to. So they figured, we have to unite or we are fucked. So right now they are trying to create a unified country for themselves, a single nation called the United Kriels. And they're now, all the other factions are just fighting for their own ideals and what have you. The Trollbloods, they're just fighting to survive. Like, they have enemies everywhere, and they just want to survive. That's all. And it's kind of sad for them. Since why these are just the small territories that they have presences in. They're not, like I said, they're not a nation just yet. And those are the banners of the Trollkin Krutari. And they don't, like I said, they don't have a traditional leadership. These are just all these alliances and different leaders and war bands. They don't have a single leadership, but they do have a defined command structure. So they have the Marshal of the Kriels, the Omathi, the Hatun, the Squad, and all these other stuff. So, Warlocks. Now, the thing about Trollbloods, extremely strong, extremely tough. If you hurt them, their wounds actually drift off their bodies and become little organisms called whelps, which are like little mini trolls. Now, now the Warlocks, very interesting. This is Grim Angus, a hunter who uses a sniper rifle. Hunter's Grim is his unit of basically him and some boys he get together to hunt shit. Grisella Bloodsong, a Fellcaller. You've already mentioned a Fellcaller before. Fellcallers are basically people, Trollkin, who can sing so loudly that they can shatter stone and blow people up by just singing at them. And Grisella is one of the best Fellcallers in the entire kingdoms. And eventually, she would become the leader of the United Kriels, the Marshal of the Kriels, Grisella Bloodsong. And then we have this son of a bitch, Horlaruk Doomshaper, Shaman of the Gnarls. Horlaruk is extremely, extremely, extremely racist. He does not like anything that's not Trollkin. He is very paranoid. He doesn't like dealing with humans. He is just very snippy. Like, he thinks he knows better. He's lived a long time, and he's a master magician. He's just not a likable guy. Just, like I said, he's just a racist. He's just a horrible, horrible racist. And here he is, Rage of Dunia. Yeah. So if you ever want to interact with the Trollbloods, best do it away from this guy, because he's very unreasonable. And here he is, Dire Prophet. Captain Gunborn. Gunborn, he's actually a former member of the Signarin military. Actually, used to be a trencher who left the military and used his military expertise now to help his people. And he used a giant fuck-off cannon. Look at that shit. Horgel the Anvil, a blacksmith who turned into a badass warrior. And this we have Mandrake Ironhide, Thornwolf Chieftain. Now, Mandrake used to be the leader of them because of that axe. Look familiar? That's the same axe that Cromac used, called Rafrock. He wanted to use the axe's power to unite the Kriels, but it is a tool of the worm, and it was steadily driving him insane. As you can see, this is him as the World Ender. So he got rid of it and became the Great Chieftain Madrak. So yeah, so weapons change can be passed from one character to another. Vorka Kegslayer and his keg carrier. This guy likes to fight and he likes to drink. That's why he got some whelps carrying a keg of booze everywhere he goes. Vorka, the Vengeance of the Rimshaws. This is him all sobered up and riding a fucking polar bear. Nice. Jarl Skull, the Devil of the Thornwood, a bandit who uses his banditry now in service of the United Kriels. Ragnar Skysplitter, the Rune Master, another powerful sorcerer. Calandra Truthsayer, Oracle of the Glimmerwood. Gypsy. And now for the War Beasts. Now, what's interesting about Trollkin War Beasts is that they're not different species. They're actually different variants of Trollbloods. These are called dire trolls, which are bigger, less intelligent, and meaner Trollbloods. Now, these are got your full-blooded trolls, you got dire trolls, elemental trolls, troll kings, and what have you. So we got a dire troll blitzer, dire troll bomber, dire troll mauler, dire troll earthborn dire troll, a night troll, pyre troll, slag troll, a storm troll, swamp troll. You see a theme here. Axe troll, troll bouncer, troll impaler, winter troll, Drozer and Smig, which is a duo of a smaller troll and a giant dire troll with a fuck off cannon. Mulg the Ancient, one of the oldest dire trolls in the entire army. Rock, who is the personal, I think is Voika's personal troll. The Glacier King, which is their gargantuan, and the Mountain King, which is their other gargantuan. Yeah, that's big. Real big. Also, they have a new one called the Sea King, which is a troll with a sunken pirate ship on his back. That's awesome. And now for the warriors. Not much to say about them other than just being more trolls. We got the Duhani Knot, the Keystone Bearer with Stone Scribes, the Stone Scribe Elder, Kriel Warriors, Kriel Warrior Cabal Thrower, Kriel Warrior and Standard and Piper, Trollkin Champions, Trollkin Fenblades, Trollkin Fenblade Officer and Standard, Trollkin Long Riders, Troll Rue Shapers, Sorcerers, Warders, the Sons of Brag, Fellcaller Hero, love me a Fellcaller, the Fenblade Kethgrak, Stone Scribe Chronicler, Trollkin Whelps, Trollkin Champion Hero, a Rune Bearer, Horuk Long Rider Hero, Gorgel Ironstrike, Janissa Stonetide, and that's it for the Trollkin. All right, we're gonna do the minions, and first we're gonna do the Legion of Everblight, and then the minions, and then we're gonna call it a session. Yeah, because I don't want. Yeah, we're just missing the internet troll. Thank you, Mike. It's always good to have you here, Mike. Always with a sense of humor. All right, the Legion of Everblight. Rather unique faction in themselves. Let's show the map. Smallest of all the territories. Now, we got to go dig into some lore. Now, last time, since Mike, you weren't here for this, we discussed the dragons. Dragons are unique in that their bodies can be destroyed, but as long they have these things called athanks, which are their heartstone. As long as the heartstone exists, a dragon's body can just be destroyed numerous amounts of times, and they can just reform it in any shape they want. And the athanks are very hard to destroy. Now, out of all of Turk's children, probably his most cunning one is that of Everblight. Everblight never really engaged in combat. Not that he wasn't weak, it's just he was more cunning than his siblings. He preferred to wait and watch. Now, long story short, he took up residence under the Dark Kingdom of Mord and had spent decades, if not centuries, manipulating things from underneath that Dark Kingdom. When Mord fell, he moved on to the country to the nation of Ios, and he tried to manipulate them, but elves were not humans and they were not so easily manipulated. So when they found him, they destroyed his body and placed his Athank inside of a sealed jar. And they placed that jar in the glass peaks, the upper parts of northern immoren. And he couldn't do anything. He was trapped, formless, without a body, centuries uncountable. And all he could do was rage and cry because he just could not get out. So, but eventually, Everblight calmed down, and he's like, okay, maybe there's an advantage of me not having a body. So he came up with a plan, but he needed to escape. So centuries go by until finally there was a Khadoran work camp just a couple of miles away from the mountain where he was held. And in that work camp, they had some Orgren slaves, and one of them was an Orgren by the name of Thagrosh. Yeah, it's something like that. Thank is basically indestructible. Like, unless the dragon themselves do the damage, nothing can destroy it. So yeah, it's like, but that's a pretty good approximation, Mike. So Everblight started to influence Thagrosh's dreams. He kept whispering to him, and he kept whispering to him in his dreams. And Thagrosh was becoming irritable and stressed because he was being worked to the whip by these Khadorans, until finally his brother was killed by the Khadorans because of a perceived slight. He then killed one of the overseers and fled into the mountains. That's when Everblight hold got, and the closer he got to the mountains, the more Everblight's hold got on him. And eventually he was like, find me. So he climbed, with the Khadorans at his heels, climbed all the way up to the top of the mountain and found the jar that Everblight's Athank was in. He opened it, and finally he was able to properly commune with this entity that had been communicating with him for months. And he was like, this is my God. So he did something really extreme. He took a hunting knife, that his only weapon, sliced open his chest, pulled the Athank, and shoved it into his beating heart, becoming one with the Athank. And the blight of Everblight's Athank molded him and transformed him into something else. Something in between Orgren and dragon. The Khadorans caught up with him, but he easily killed them all due to the power that he had gotten. So now, for the first time in centuries, Everblight actually had mobility. He had legs. He could move around, but this was just the start of it. He needed to have an army, and he noticed that there were the nice elves, the cousins, the rustic cousins of the elves, of the Iosan elves, who were still missing their god Nisor. And he felt that they would be the perfect addition, the first start of his army. Now, here's the thing. The fall of the Nice Elves wasn't just by Thagrosh alone. It was done by one of their mystics, a woman named Vale. Vale had always sensed that something was coming, a power that was coming to encounter her people. And when she met Thagrosh and Everblight, she was like, you're the one. And she helped him assimilate her people by infecting their food and their water supplies with dragon blight. And soon the entire Nice Elf species ceased to exist. They became subservient to the will of Everblight. The few survivors who weren't turned fled from their territories into the kingdoms of men. And after this, they decided to add some muscle. So they turned several of Thagrosh's kin, the Orgrens, into their blighted servants. Now, the interesting thing about this is the warlocks of the Legion all have pieces of Everblight's Athank in them. So this not only allowed them to communicate at any point in time with Thagrosh at any moment, They could also communicate with each other across distances. It was wordless communication. The Legion of Everblight's warlocks have a level of communication and teamwork that no other group in the game have, because they're constantly in touch with each other. They don't need to speak. They don't need to even see each other. Hell, they don't even need to pray to Everblight, because he is always with them. He can speak to them at a moment's notice. They can share in his knowledge, his experience from centuries and millennia of his life that is spent, and they can access it at any time that they want. It's not like a hive mind, Mike, or like just shared thoughts. They don't speak. They have their individuality. They just are able to communicate with each other a bit better. They can communicate with each other without losing their personality, because at some points that Everblight can subsume their personality if he needs to speak with somebody outside of their leadership. But in essence, they're constantly being able to communicate with each other at any point. It's not like a hive mind. They just have they have their individual personalities. They're just able to communicate wordlessly with themselves and Everblight. Let's see. And this is basically the leadership of the Legion. Thagarash is in the center. He's called the Messiah, and he is the one closest to Everblight, and all the others are all the warlocks who have pieces of his Athank. Not that many. So there's that, and below them are all the units and all the different individuals who make up the forces. So let's look at them. All right, first we have Apsilonia, the terror of Everblight. Now she's not so much as a commander of men. Her body is metamorphic. Like, she can literally change the composition and the appearance of her body to suit the situation. She is literally an adaptable person. She can change her appearance to give herself any kind of ability that she wants, and she's the only member of the Legion that can do that. And this is Apsilonia, the daughter of Everblight, when she's more dragonic than ever. This is Bethany, voice of Everblight, and her personal war beast, Belphegor. Interesting enough, she can actually fuse with Belphegor to become a singular being, gaining her more and more power. This is what I mean by the synergy between the Legion members. They are close in a sense that goes beyond the physical. This is Fauna, the torment of Everblight. Callus, the wrath of Everblight. Now, this one is unique. Callus is not an elf, nor is he an Orgrin. He is a completely created being. Now, a few years ago, Everblight actually wanted to experiment with actually creating a created being. So they enlisted in an experiment, and they created Callus. Callus is completely original. There is no other being like Callus in not just the Legion, but in all of Immoren. He is a wholly created being, completely subservient to Everblight. And Vale is iffy about him because she can't get a handle on him. He doesn't ascribe to greater power. He just wants to serve Everblight. He is the perfect, like, manufactured entity. He's like a biological android of sorts. So there's that. And this is Callus' devastation of Everblight. Now, this is him. Now, at one point, during a major battle with the dragon, he was actually swallowed by a dragon. One of Everblight's siblings. I forget which. And he couldn't get out. And everyone thought he was lost. But he was still inside and living inside of the dragon's stomach, because of one of his unique ability is that he has basically Wolverine healing. And he kept getting burned and healing and what have you. So he needed to find a way out. So he did what anyone else would do in his situation. He ate his way out. Like, literally, he started tearing off pieces of the dragon from within his own stomach and began eating through his flesh until he emerged. And eating all that dragon flesh evolved him into this. Like, it's literally, you are what you eat. So he's more powerful than he has ever been after being nearly digested by a dragon. We have Cryrissa, the conviction of Everblight. Lilith, the herald of Everblight, his top assassin. who fights entirely blindfolded because Everblight sees for her. Now she's the shadow of Everblight. And then she became a fucking battle engine, the reckoning of Everblight. Then we have Ryas, the sigil of Everblight, assassin for the group. And Saren, the omen of Everblight, is her twin sister. And this is the two of them together as a duo, to the only duo warcasters in all of the entire game. And now we have Thagrosh, the one who started all. Thagrosh, the prophet of Everblight. He is the leader, the symbolic leader of the entire Legion. And as you can see, he looks entirely different from his Orgren roots. There's that. Then came the event called the Battle of the Castle of the Keys, where the Legion took down and consumed the dragon Blighterghast. And this caused Thagrosh to evolve even further into Thagrosh the Messiah. Now he doesn't even look like an Orgren anymore. Now we have Vale, disciple of Everblight, the woman who is cursed by elves everywhere as the woman who sold out her own race. Yeah, she's a bitch. And evolving into Council of Everblight. Now, while Thagrosh is the leader of the group, she is undoubtedly the true day-to-day leader. She runs everything, the day-to-day forces and what have you. Now for the War Beasts. Many of the War Beasts are actually created from the blood of the dragonically enhanced. So these are all like dragon mutants and shit. So we have the Afflictor, the Angelus, Blighted Wasps, the Carnivian. Mind you, all of them have sightless, meaning that they don't have eyes, so they don't need to see. They hunt entirely by other senses. Harriers, Naga Night Lurkers, the Nephilim Bloodseekers, the Nephilim Bolt Throwers, the Nephilim Protector, Nephilim Soldiers, the Nephrath, the Wreck, the Ravagore, the Scythian, the Seraph, the Shredder, no, not a Rokusaki, the Stinger, and no, not Steve Borden, Tariff, Azrael, look at that shit, Proteus, Absalana's personal warjack, and this thing is just hideous, Typhon, which is Thagrosh's personal warjack, which is, again, hideous, Zurella, Saren and Laren's personal war beast. Their Gargantuan, the Archangel. Their other Gargantuan, the Blightbringer. Now we have the Warriors. Now, typically the Warriors can be divided up into. Yep, not the Batman replacement. Yeah. The Warriors of Everblight are divided up into two segments. You got the Nice Elves, who act as sort of like the lighter, more faster, maneuverable soldiers, and you got the Orgrens, who act as more like the meat shields and the heavy artillery. And of course, they use claymores, but what we call katanas. So we have the blighted Orgren warmongers, the Orgren war spears, the war spear chieftain, the nice archers, their attachment, the nice hex hunters, the Bale Hound of Everblight, who is a hunter, the nice legionnaires, the Phalord and Standard, the nice raptors, and I'm not talking about the basketball team, the nice Scatherer crew, the nice swordsman, the swordsman Abbot and Champion attachment, the grotesque banshees, the grotesque raiders, the Hellmouth, and I'm not talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Spawning vessels. This is basically how they spawn lesser war beasts, by taking the corpses and lives of other people around them, throwing them into the pot, and creating new war beasts. Hell, they can even kill each other to make more war beasts. I've seen it done. Blight Blades, Strider Scouts, their officer and musician, the Blackfoot Shard, which is the elite class of Nice Hunters, Beast Mistress, Nice Shepherd, Nice Scion and Hellion, the Warlord, the Forsaken, which are nightmares, the Grotesque Assassins, the Incubus, which can infect, which are basically chest bursters for infantry. Don't get these things touching you. Soul Martyrs, which are just there to blow themselves up and do other shit. Strider Deathstalker, the Succubus, and not the good kind of succubus, the Warmonger Warchief, Fiona the Lash before she became a warlock, Anasa Revile, nice little, the Throne of Everblight, which is their battle engine, which looks like something out of H.P. Lovecraft, and that's it. And for the for that. So now we have one more thing. So I'm glad you guys are sticking around. We got one more thing to talk about. Let's talk about the minions. Minions are basically the mercenaries for hordes. They work the same. Some versions won't work with other versions, and some characters won't work with other characters because of their history. You can, and just like with the mercenary, and also you can actually use, if you're playing hordes, you can use mercenaries from Warmachine in your hordes army, and vice versa. You can use minions in your Warmachine army. So it's being fair. All right. First, of course, we got to do. Right. First, we got the Ferrogas, which is a type of evil spirit. We have Thrug. Evil-looking thing. This is one of my favorite characters, Alton Ashley. He's basically a big game hunter with a giant elephant gun who makes his living hunting beasts across all of Immoren and then selling their corpses, and just basically his whole thing is, if it's a beast, if it breathes, he has hunted it and he has killed it. I love Alton Ashley. Alton Ashley is my favorite. If I could play him, I would. Brun Cragback and Lug, which is a rule folk and a giant, his pet polar bear. Gundren the Wanderer. Now, I mentioned Orgrins before, and how their desire to serve a lord is all that matters. Now, Gundren was a masterless Orgrin who was desperate to serve a lord, so he chose a rule folk lord to serve. Unfortunately, this lord was involved in a house feud with another clan. Unfortunately, now house feuds between Ruick clans tend to be bloody. They tend to be like violent, but not too violent. This particular house feud was exceptionally violent. Like, a lot of people died unnecessarily, and Gundren was involved in it. And while the Moot of the 100 Houses, the governing body of ruled that his house lord was responsible for most of it, it didn't sit well with him. He couldn't erase everything that had happened, and he became Gundren the Wanderer. And he's a great warrior. Unfortunately, he's just haunted by the things he did during that clan war. Even though no one blamed him, he still couldn't reason with it. So he became a wandering mercenary, and most notably, he became a drunk. Like, even though he's a peerless warrior, he often can find him on the battlefield, dead on his ass, drunk. And he's just a sorry excuse for a character. I'm not trying to think badly of him, but he's just haunted by demons and just falls into a bottle to forget the shit he's done, which makes him a very tragic figure. Dania Howlier and Skathra. She is a nice elf, and this is a type of lizard found in the Bloodstone Marshes that she controls with that flute in her hand. Very interesting pairing. Saxon Ulrix. Interesting character. He is another aide. He was another assistant to Ventor Ralthorn, and actually played a key part in helping the Scorn travel across the Bloodstone Marshes to attempt to invade the Iron Kingdoms. Nobody likes him. Victor Pendrake, a very interesting character here. Now, he's not just a badass. Victor Pendrake is also he's also a professor at Corvus University, and he's also the professor of extraordinary zoology. Like, basically all the weird and wild creatures of Immoren he has seen or encountered, and he actually wrote books on it. And there are books called the Monstronomicon, which I plan to read for this channel, where he goes into detail about different flora and fauna that you can be found in the Iron Kingdoms. And basically, he's the go-to guide when you want to know about the various things that go happen. Like, do you know there's this thing called a crypt spider, and a crypt spider are basically large spiders that feed primarily on the bones of the dead. They're completely harmless to humans except when they're attacked. And the thing about crypt spiders, if you kill one and you can make a tonic out of it, and if you drink the tonic, you will be able to remember the memories of the last corpse that the crypt spider ate. It's not permanent, but it's just an interesting thing. And the Monstronomicon is just filled with little tidbits and creatures and all these weird sort of stuff. And I might do that for a stream. Just read a couple of entries from the Monstronomicon. I have all 3 volumes of the Monstronomicon. It is a very good read, and Victor Pendrake is a great character. I love him. Lanissa Lyceal, nice sorceress, one of the few surviving Nice who escaped before being turned into the Legion, and she will not work for the Legion, obviously. This is the Totem Hunter, and it's just a fucking predator. Yeah, Victor Pendrake is basically Hagrid, but yeah, this is a predator. The Totem Hunter. That's not even his name. That's just what people call him. He comes from an unknown land. He speaks an unknown language, and he hunts warriors. He is a predator, and I don't mean in the Harvey Weinstein sort of way. No, I mean in the anytime sort of thing. Except without the caster and all this other stuff. If you're fighting a Totem Hunter, he's gonna kill you, unless you're really good. Very few people survive and run in with the Totem Hunter. Now we move on to one of the 2 minor factions in Hordes, the Blind Water Congregation. The Blind Water Congregation is primarily made up of a... Oh, hey, Joseph. Hey, what's going on? I don't know. Hopefully we'll probably hopefully get a zoo faction one day. But yeah, Devil, it's a freaking predator. Alright, the Blind Water Congregation is made up of basically Gatormen. Gatormen are what they sound like. They are anthropomorphic gators. And they worship a god called Korsk, who is a god of violence and death. And Korsk is a Native American who turns into a wolf. No, man, that's wolfing. Well, the wolfing will get you with his razor. If you get that reference, 100 points to you. So anyway... The Gatormen, the Blind Water Congregation, were a unified of all the Gatormen tribes within the swamps of Western Immoren. And leading them is this guy. Say hello to Bloody Barnabas. Bloody Barnabas is the undisputed founder and leader of the Blind Water Congregation. There have been stories and legends about Bloody Barnabas stretching back for centuries. And then people talk about this mysterious, violent Gator man. And there are 2 schools of thought when it comes to Bloody Barnabas. One, it is perhaps a bunch of different Gator men taking his name and using it to inspire fear in the various peoples and societies around their section of Western Immoren. Or 2, it's the same Gator man over centuries. Now, according to Victor Pendrake, Gator men have stunted aging. Like, they don't get old in the same way that we do. They just keep growing. And if they don't die from combat or disease or what have you, a Gator man can just stop aging. It's actually far more complicated than that. You can find more about it in my video on Bloody Barnabas from the Gavin Kyle files. It goes into detail about the anatomy of Gatormen. Yes, Mike Show. They talked to that. I'm glad you talked. You saw my video on Bloody Barnabas. Yeah. So Bloody Barnabas is an objective. He wants to create a battle He wants to create a battle with such bloodshed, such violence, such death on a scale unto seen in the shores of Western Immoren, that he can use that power to make himself into a god. He wants to achieve apotheosis through pure violence. Because Gator men live off life and death. The manipulation of life and death is important to Gator men. And this just goes to show you that Bloody Barnabas' legend makes him all the more dangerous. Now, Gator men are capable of speaking the tongues of humans, but don't let your guard down around them. They can easily be your friend, and they can easily eat you if they decide to. Next, we have Caliban, the Grave Walker, another powerful Bokor working for Bloody Barnabas. Then we have a Bull Snapper, a Blackhide Wrestler, or Wrastler. It must be from the southern United States. An Ironbeak Splitter, Fog Trogs, which are another species. They're not Gator men, but they have aligned themselves with the Blind Water Congregation. They're just another species that exists in the swamp. Bog Trogs. I've mentioned them before in my last live stream. We got a Gator Man Posse, Swamp Gobbers, which are a swamp variant of Gobbers, the Swamp Gobber Bellows crew. Croak Hunters, which are the Croaks, which are basically frog men in the swamps. Wrong Eye and his assistant Snapjaw. A nice little duo minion group. And now we move on to the last of the sub factions of the. I thought you were gonna say. Yeah, that's true. Why be a Dracodile when you can be a god? Thank you. You get it, my friend. Thank you. The Pharaoh are basically pig people. They're pigmen. They're basically wild hogs who are anthropomorphized, and they're part of the Thornfall Alliance. Thornfall Alliance is a group of pigmen who are Pharaoh who will want to create an empire for themselves to match and eventually surpass the kingdoms of men. Now, leading the Blind Water Congregation is this guy. And for you, Devil, and you, Mike, this is going to be awesome because he has, in my opinion, the coolest name of any character in all of Warmahordes. This is my personal opinion, but this is his name. This is Lord Carver, BMMD Esquire III. What does BMMD stand for? It stands for, I shit you not, Bringer of Most Massive Destruction. So his full name is Lord Carver, Bringer of Most Massive Destruction, Esquire III. Yeah, he named himself that, including the Esquire and the Third. There is no Lord Carver the Second or Lord Carver the First. He just put that because it sounded like, all cool and shit. Like, he used to be a pharaoh mercenary working for various factions across Western Immoren, and he got tired of this. He's like, I want an empire. I want to build an empire that can rival those fucked up humans. And so he began to unite all the pharaoh tribes under the Thornfall Alliance. And this is him right here with his giant axe Sunder. I think. No, it's actually called Hand of God. I'm sorry. How did I forget the name of his sword being Hand of God? Yeah, that. See, I told you guys it would be awesome. It is ridiculous, yet amazing. So, helping him is Dr. Arcadius. He is the only human amongst the Thornfall Alliance. Dr. Arcadius was once a scientist working for Corvus University and various fields of academia in the Iron Kingdoms, but a lot of scientists found his experimentation to be questionable. Performed a lot of unnecessary surgery. Yeah, and he had a cult. Gozer worshippers. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that. Dr. Arcadius' whole thing is that he wants to be able to conduct experiments, and Carver allows him to experiment on his troops because the Pharaoh are very malleable in terms of genetics and biodiversity. And he's like, I can experiment as to my heart's content, and you get your army. Now, don't misunderstand. Arcadius does not like. Don't misunderstand. Carver does not like Arcadius. In fact, once he says that once his usefulness is over, he would gladly kill and eat him. Arcadius knows this, but he's still snippy with him because that's how he rolls. Yeah, we got the gun boar. Here's a lot of pig and boar puns. We got the gun boar, the warhog, pharaoh bone grinders, pharaoh brigands, the pharaoh razorback crew, Rosh and Brine, another nice duo. And that is about it for the pharaoh. That's that. All right. All right, and I think that will be it for this stream. We still got a lot more to go through. We still got one more faction from the warmahordes, from the Warmachine side. Yeah, the sword too is hand of God. So yeah, next time we're gonna look at one more group within the Warmachine faction. And Joseph knows what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Convergence of Cyrus. Then we will go into the Oblivion storyline stuff. And I think that would be it for our basic deep dive into the world of Warmachine and Hordes, unless you want me to read some of the books. I got a couple of the books on my hard drive. I could read some of that. And I got some of the expansion books which introduce more warcasters and war beasts and more other characters into the story, and I can read some of those, so I can do some of that. But yeah, that's the basic. You know, we still got one more to do, and then we just move on forward with the story. But yeah, I want to thank everybody who stopped by. I want to thank Mike Shell, of course. I want to thank Devil. I want to thank Joseph for stopping by and making this all worth it. Guys, I really, really appreciate it. And make sure to like, and I'm not going to say like, comment, and subscribe. That's too well done. Just watch the VOD. You can have it on in the background. I need the money because I need that extra cash. I'm so close to getting my paycheck, which I really, really need by the end of the month because, like I said, the hurricane really took it out of me, so you know why. I appreciate you liking, commenting. I'm not going to say that. No, I'd appreciate you not just listening, adding some more watch time, putting more views on it, and what have you. And I appreciate all this other stuff. And I'm going to go drink some water and put some honey on my throat because my voice is now getting shot. So yeah, I really appreciate this. So tune in Thursday when we probably finish up with our deep dive into the world of Warmachine and Hordes, and we get to the event that some of you who are familiar with this with the story are probably waiting for, Oblivion. We're gonna get to that. So that's been great. So until next time, this has been Shintigercurl, that dude in straw hat, saying good night, and yes, keep using that name, Lord Carver, bringer of most massive destruction, Esquire.